Hey, hey, hello, hello, and hi, and welcome to the 50th, that's right, 50th episode of Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles video cast. I can't believe it's been 2 years since we started this show, and it's just amazing. I mean, I look at all these wonderful faces, and finally seeing a lot of people that have been listening to the show for a long time now, and we really appreciate everybody being here. I am one of your four co-hosts, Tom Hanyadi. You may know me from my other show, Two Legs, a Paul McCartney podcast, but we're not going to worry about that right now. We're worried about Talk More Talk. So I'm going to introduce to you my three other co-hosts, and she is the queen of all Beatles media. She is the author of this going songs we were singing. She is Kit O'Toole. Kits, hello, and how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am so excited about this tonight. I'm so excited to be with everybody here. This is going to be I think, a blast tonight.
That's right. That's right. Next up is our buddy. He's our YouTuber. He is one of the leading YouTube Beatles, solo Beatles, vinyl entertainment, person out there. He's got a wonderful channel, Me Mr. Mayo. He is Joe Mayo. Joe, what's going on, my friend?
Oh, just looking forward, Tom, to a great time here. I can't wait to get to the questions, and this is going to be a blast. So
it is going to be a blast. And lastly but not least, he has been the DJ of the very popular Every Little Thing for almost 40 years now. 40 years. That is amazing. Congratulations to that. And he also is one of the co-hosts of another extremely popular podcast, Things We Said Today, which we just did part 2 of our collaboration, but we'll get to that later. And he is the one and only Ken Michaels. Ken, hello. How are you?
Great. Hi, Tom. Hi, Kit and Joe. Hi to all of our listeners and viewers. It is great to see you in the flesh. All this time, you've been a bunch of letters until now. Now we get to see your wonderful faces, and this is going to be great.
This
is a great milestone for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. We appreciate everybody being here. Now, if you're familiar with the fest, or if you've joined the Fest for Beatles fans, the last two virtual fests, you're kind of a little familiar with what's going on right here. However, the Queen is going to give you the lowdown on what you're going to be doing, how you're going to raise your hand, and how you can unmute yourself as well. So, Kit, as always, lead us.
All right. Well, what we are doing tonight, as I know you're all aware, is we're going to be playing a little game of Wrack Our Brains. And you are going to be asking us the questions tonight, and we are going to be answering off the top of our heads. You can ask us about solo, and these are opinion questions. You can ask us about solo stuff. You can ask us about Beatles stuff as well. And as Tom said, if you have gone to any of the Beatles, Fest for Beatles fans virtual fests that they've had this year, you're probably kind of already familiar with how this will work. But here's what we're going to do. If you click on participants, if you look at the bottom of your screens, your Zoom screens, you can click on participants. You'll see your name there, and all you have to do is click on your name, and you'll see, I believe you'll see more there, and all you have to do is click on raise hand. You'll see a bunch of options there, but you'll see raise hand. So, and yep, I see people doing it already. And so we'll see your hands raised there. So what we'll do is we'll call on you, we'll call your name, and ask you to unmute yourself. And then, you ask your question, we will answer, we'll go back and forth, answer it, and then when we're finished, we'll ask you to mute yourself, and then we'll go on to the next person. So it's just so we can get to as many questions as we can, and so it doesn't get too loud and confusing and everything. So so that's how it worked at the fest. Worked pretty well. So I think that's how we're going to do it tonight. So.
And just to give an example of what we're going to do, I'm going to lead it off real quick. Guys, Joe, Ken, Kit, better tribute to John Lennon, here today or all those years ago? What say you, Ken Michaels?
That's tough. I'd go with Here Today. Here Today is a bit more emotional for me. It really was very much from the heart. Not that all those years ago wasn't, but if you know the whole history of all those years ago, the melody was actually, a completely different song, and
Right.
George just restructured it and added all new lyrics. So it'd be a tribute for John. True, it was a big hit for him, but I love the whole arrangement of Here Today, very much in the style of Yesterday with the string quartet. It's still, whenever he does the song live, it's very emotional.
Yep.
And you could feel it in him.
Oh,
when he sings
absolutely.
the song.
Yeah.
So I think that they're both great songs, but Here Today affects me more in the heart.
Very good. Kid O'Toole?
I have to agree. I mean, I love all those years ago as well. But Here Today just always, I mean, it's so moving. It's so beautiful. Paul absolutely was speaking from the heart, referring to conversations that he and John had. I mean, you can just tell. And just that overall universal meaning, and I think we can all relate to, of, when to tell someone you love them when they're still alive, and to be sure you tell people how you feel about them. And so I think it's not only effective as a personal song saying how he feels about John, but I think it also works as a song that has universal meaning too. And it's a beautiful tribute. So much as I love all those years ago, I have to go with Here Today.
Very good. Joe Mayo? Some reason we can't hear you, Joe.
We can't hear you, Joe.
Are you muted?
Are you muted? We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Okay, well,
all right.
We'll see if we can fix the problem.
We'll
see if we can fix the problem, and let me make sure that I don't think you're muted.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
How's this?
Oh, wait.
Yes,
there you go.
I think we hear you now.
I was fiddling around with the volume before my headphones.
Gotcha.
Good, because I wanted to get a chance to say that I Here Today, for all the reasons that you guys have already said. It's very emotional, very personal. John and Paul, they were so close, and the two main writers who really started everything before they got George into it, and so forth. And I've never been, I hate to say, a big fan of All Those Years Ago. I mean, I don't dislike it per se, but I'm not a big fan of it. I always thought, George trying to fit a lot of vocals into the lines and a little awkwardly, stuff like that. I'd rather have it than not. But, it's easy for me Here Today by a wide margin.
Very good. Yes, I will go with Here Today as well. It's very moving, very touching. It pulls at the heartstrings. And like you said, Kid, the whole I love you thing, getting out there, telling people you love them before it's too late. And, and you can definitely hear it in his voice when he sings it, that, he really loved John. So definitely, I love both songs. I love All Those Years Ago as well, but Here Today for me is the better tribute, in my opinion. So that being said, that's how we're going to do it. And we're going to start this off. Is everybody ready to go? Yes?
Okay.
Yes?
Can't hear them.
Okay. Okay. Well, first in line is Gary. Gary, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question. Hold on.
We can't hear you. You
got to unmute yourself. You got to unmute yourself, Gary.
Yeah, Gary Wilbur.
Yep.
You unmute yourself. Let me.
It's the bottom left.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Go ahead, my friend.
It's an honor to be on your show, by the way. I love the show, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, opinion question, that is. I always wondered why Paul didn't consider seriously doing a complete album in concert, like Band on the Run, from start to finish. He still could have had an hour and a half to do all his regular songs from his set list. And I think the fans would have gone crazy for something like that. And other artists have done this kind of thing. I saw Roger Daltrey do the whole Tommy, and he has bad had a bad vocal problem. And I saw him at Nassau Coliseum do the whole Tommy album with a backing orchestra. And I just wondered why either Tug of War or Band on the Run or one other classic album that could fit his voice range at this point in time. Band on the Run to me would make sense because there's not too many screeches on that album. And I think he could probably and he sings 3 or 4 of the songs anyway during most of his concerts. I've seen him 12 times. And I've seen, he sang about 5 or 6 songs from the album, and it's my favorite album. And I just wondered what you guys thought. Either that or Tug of War, maybe why the reason he has for not doing it, for not considering it. I think it would be a great idea if we ever have concerts again and he goes back out on the road. I think that would be fantastic. And I just wonder what you guys thought.
Thank you.
Who wants to start?
Well, I'll say something. I just think that Paul probably doesn't want to do that. I just think it's something that he's not really interested in. He seems to want to do what he thinks most of the fans would like to hear. And I don't know if everybody would want to hear one album. I mean, as a diehard fan, I would love to hear something like that, and, make it back to the egg or something for me, But I could see if he was going to do it, something like Band on the Run would probably be what he would think, because he tends to pick a lot of what he deems are his most popular albums and what people will accept more. It seems like he wants to do more what the other people out there might be interested in rather than what he wants to do from himself the way I look at it as a solo artist. He wants there's nothing wrong with wanting to please your base, right? But I think it would be good if he took chances sometime and just said, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want to do. If everybody doesn't like it, I'll do all solo songs one concert, no Beatles, But he wants to do that for the fans, especially people who've just seen him first time, never seen him before. So.
Okay. I can comment on this.
Go ahead.
I really think that probably to Paul, it might be a bit boring because it would be predictable, all the songs that he would do in order. And also, you got to figure when you're going back to the Wings material, who's going to sing the Denny Lane songs? Who's going to sing a Jimmy McCulloch song? Or and with a Tug of War album or Pipes of Peace, who's going to sing the Stevie Wonder or the Michael Jackson or, that kind of thing, or Elvis Costello. So he's got to think about that as well. Although I think Abe is a great singer.
I was just going to say Abe.
He could fit the bill for all those things, but he probably has to apply that kind of thought to it. But I think Paul just likes to mix it all up, and he is a crowd pleaser. He does the kind of show where he said himself, he puts himself in the mind of the fan. What would he want? What would that person want to hear Paul do? So, and not only that, to a mainstream audience anyway, how many people know his solo albums aside from Band on the Run, which, we all agree is one of his best albums. Some think that it's his best, but does the average person out there really know Tug of War? Does the average person know Flowers in the Dirt and Flaming Pie? We do. But if you're entertaining a crowd of 20,000 to 50,000 people, how many of them are going to know every single song on those albums? I personally would love to see it. It could work if it's in a smaller venue and he announces ahead of time that he's doing it, and all of us will go crazy knowing he's doing the full album. But I think the thing is, right now he's 78 years old. He's got to divide his time between doing concerts, spending time with his family, which is extremely important to him, and all the music projects that he does. So the number of shows that he can do in a year is limiting. And if he wants to attract as many people as possible, he's got to play bigger venues. If you're playing bigger venues, you got to mainstream the show more. That's how I look at it.
Right. Yeah. As a great of an idea that it is, and the fact that he does play 3 hours, you could easily fit in a 30 to 40 minute album, in between that time, and still get all the big Beatles and McCartney hits in there, like you suggest, Gary. But I kind of agree with Ken. I mean, I think he would find it kind of boring, and he already plays half of the album. He's already played half of the album already. So why do the rest? Does anybody really want to hear Picasso's last words?
I do.
I don't want
Well, yeah, but
not a favorite of mine.
To your point, though, the casual fan, that's probably 80% of the audience most times are do they really want to hear Picasso's last words? Or but like you said, if he did make an announcement and say, hey, I'm going to go out on tour, but I'm going to do the Band on the Run album first, then I think people could accept that. I mean, but will he do it? I don't see it.
I don't know, because I mean, yes, I mean, if you look at it realistically, but look at when Stevie Wonder did the Songs in the Key of Life tour.
Oh, yeah. Chicago's done the Chicago 2 album full.
Exactly.
Live.
I mean, those can be very successful, and now in my fantasy world, I would love to see him do a full album tour. I mean, absolutely. I'd love to see him do Tug of War. I mean, I sign me up. I'd love to. And Saul Perez just wrote a comment here in the chat, which is true. It said, didn't Paul have Hamish Stewart sing Stevie's part on Ebony and Ivory in the 90 tour?
True.
Yes, he did.
Mhm.
So, he could have that as well. I mean, have somebody filled in. But yeah, I mean, realistically, yes, if Paul is still wanting to appeal to the, casual fan as well as the hardcore fan, he probably would say, well, I don't know if the, average fan would come and want to listen to the entire Tug of War album. But, for me, as I said, sign me up.
Even though we all would.
I'd love to hear dress Me Up as a Robber live. I mean, I'd love to hear that. But
I'd love to hear what's that you're doing.
Oh, you kidding?
Right.
I mean,
Or
Or ballroom
absolutely.
dancing,
All right, absolutely. Wanderlust. Cool. All right, so moving on.
Thanks for your question, Gary.
Yeah, thank you.
That
Yeah,
was great.
Yeah, we're going to skip Dylan. We're going to go, no, I was kidding. Dylan, go ahead. Dylan, my friend, go ahead and unmute yourself and speak. Okay. Okay. Kit, you might have to.
Oh, okay. I need to. Okay, let me request. Ask to unmute. Here we go.
Okay, there you go.
There it
All
is.
right, there we go.
Ken, Kit, finally nice to meet you guys face to face.
Nice to
And
meet you.
Joe, been watching your channel for a while. Nice to meet you as well.
Thanks.
And hey, Tom, what's up? So I would like to know from all of you, because I'm in the business of hot takes here. So what I want from each of you is a song in the solo catalog that's generally not well regarded, songs like Freedom, Bye Bye Love. I want a song of that ilk from any one of the four that you really like. I want a song that is well regarded, whether it's a hit like Imagine, Don't Come Easy, or an album track like Dominoes, Don't Let Me Wait Too Long, that you maybe either dislike or you like just fine, but you're not that hot on. And most importantly, I want to know exactly how you think this show will take off when I finally replace Tom and really usher in sort of a new light and hope into the era of Beatles podcasting.
Great.
But more importantly, the first two.
Okay. So the first part of the question
Yeah.
is you want us to pick a underrated song that you want
Or a
fans
song that people in general just don't
like
particularly
okay.
like.
Okay, got you. Kit, you want to start?
Well, actually, Dress Me Up as a Robber was one that I've always liked, and I don't know why it gets so much hate. I've always thought it had a little bit of a jazzy quality to it, and I'm not saying it's one of his all-time best, but I've always enjoyed it. I think it has some nice chord changes to it, and I just think it's sort of a underrated track on Tug of War. So I think it's I think that'd be a pick of mine. I think it's unfairly criticized.
Gotcha. I'll pick "Drowning in the Sea of Love" as a track that since we did that review of the album, it's one that I've come to appreciate more, let's say, after giving it some more attention. Not to steal another Ringo song, but that would be my pick. So, Ken?
Well, Wonderful Christmas Time certainly gets a lot of hate out there in the internet. And I have always, from day one, loved that song. It's catchy as hell. I always look forward to hearing it. Anytime it's on the radio, I crank it up. I don't understand the hatred for that song. There's a lot of people who don't like the fact that Paul can write all these earworms that are stuck in your head. And I've always defended that if you have these songs stuck in your head, you must like them. There's nothing wrong with that. It means it's grabbing you, it's gripping in some way. And, Paul has this incredible gift for coming up with all these catchy melodies that he does. And I know a lot of people like to point out that they think that with the synthesizers, it sounds dated. I don't think it sounds dated to me, and I don't even care if it sounds dated. But, I love Wonderful Christmas Time. It's one of my favorite Christmas songs from any artist. And yet it gets written up as one of the worst Christmas songs.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Joe?
I think there's a few that are in my mind, but I think I'm going to go with "Do the Oz" by John with Yoko. Right. And that's only because I just think it's so deliriously fun. It's like a warped psychedelic version of the Hokey Pokey, Do the Hokey Pokey. And, it's kind of like the same way that I like You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, I like the fact that it's kind of offbeat. I mean, it's it's a rare track. I mean, if it was just on a regular album, I don't know if I'd find it. I should have checked my machine. That's another one by Paul. I snuck two in there. I love Check My Machine also.
And do check out Joe's channel. He did a cover of Check My Machine. That you have to see it.
So that's my pick for that one.
Okay, and
I
then
have a few, but
all right, and then your follow up was pick a song that you like that the bulk of the people don't like. Was that?
No, we need a song that everyone seems to love, whether that's a hit or a well regarded album track that you are not super hot on. And gotcha. Ken, I want you to start on this one because
there aren't any. I mean, really, there's only a handful of songs from the solo catalog that I don't care for, and those are songs that are album cuts that were never hits that most people don't even know. But all the songs that people do know, I do like. There are songs that I'm burnt out on, if that will accept you.
Yeah, I will begrudgingly. Yes, I will take that.
Okay, you'll accept that. Okay. I am kind of burnt out on Imagine, and yet I will say it is a great song. But it's always looked at as being, his signature song, and it deserves to be, the universal theme of it all. But at the expense of so many other great songs that John has done in his solo career, I wish those songs would get more attention than Imagine.
Okay. My pick is Whatever Gets You Through the Night. Never been a big fan of that song, period. It's really loud to my ears. I don't think it was mixed very well, and and I think he kind of got a freebie on that one with the number one, with the help of the number one musician of the 70s at that point in time. And I know Ken, you probably disagree with that, but
it did help. There's no doubt about it. But still, the public responded because it was the chemistry of the two of them. It was still a great song.
Yeah, fair enough. Kit.
I would have to agree with that. As I think about it, I've never particularly liked that song, and for the main reason you said, I hate the mix. I really don't like the mix, and I guess another one that I've never particularly liked. I mean, I guess I would say in general, John's rock and roll album has always been a little disappointing to me in terms of the mix again. And so, maybe Stand By Me, his cover of it. I mean, it's okay to me. I've just always felt like it could have been a little bit better with a better better mix, but probably Whatever Gets You Through the Night would be my number one pick.
Can I just ask between you and Tom what you don't like about the mix of Whatever Gets You Through the Night? I thought it was fantastic, especially mixing the sax in there, which really drove the song, and the piano. And
for me, it's a volume thing. It just I think the sax just comes on too strong. Whether or not that's the point of it, fine. It's just not to my ears. It's just a little maybe too aggressive. Maybe
I love
the sax. Maybe it just feels a little chaotic.
Yes,
in general.
Yeah. That's a good.
Thank
word.
you.
Yeah.
I'd like more clarity to it, and I mean, that is crying out for some remastering. Absolutely.
Okay, Joe.
Ken is in full agreement based
Walls
off
and, Walls and Bridges, I think was really produced extremely well. The entire album, I think. But that's my opinion.
Right. Yeah. Joe?
Well, if I say Little Lamb Dragonfly, I can't back it up with why exactly. I know Ken always likes, I have to describe why you'd feel that way. Just doesn't appeal to me. I don't think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, like everybody seems to think about that. A lot of fans love that track. I think I'm the only one I've ever heard. Somebody's going like this. Robert, is that you? Okay. Yeah, that's the one I wanted to go with, I guess. By the way, Whatever Gets You Through the Night has never been a favorite of mine either. It's funny, he's the only number one while he was alive, John. But I'll just throw that in there. But yeah, I can't really explain it. I just don't think it's that much of a great song. I hear everybody saying that they love that song, Little Lamb Dragonfly. So because of that reason, it kind of leaves me empty. I don't know. I wouldn't even think of it if it wasn't for the fact that everybody seems to love it so much.
Gotcha.
It's okay.
Fair enough. Okay, let's move on. Dylan, thank you very much for
we'll discuss Tom's secession plan off air. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dylan.
All right, so we're gonna move on, and Joanne Grubs, you are next. So I will. I think
you can all unmute yourselves now. I think I fixed the settings, so so go ahead, and I think you can do it now.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay. Right. Well, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Just greetings from Fans on the Run, by the way.
All
right. Greetings.
I just had a question that almost came up in the first segment when you guys came on. Wanted to ask which of Paul's singles makes you feel emotional and you feel his emotion coming through. For me, it was Early Days and also Scared. Those are two that really touched me, and I can feel his emotion coming through when he sings it.
Interesting. So
yeah.
Which one of Paul's singles touches us or gets us emotional? Yes. Okay. Joe, you want to start?
Oh, thanks for starting me with that one. It's hard. Some of these are hard on short notice. I know they're there, but well, it has to be singles, right? Not an album track.
Does it have to be a single, or can it be anything?
It could be an album
well,
track.
I mean, the first thing I thought of was The End of the End. If we're talking album track.
Yes.
Yeah,
and while they're going on, I could think of singles while other people are talking here.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. No,
but
definitely.
It's just such a touching statement on how Paul wants to be thought of and remembered after his days passed and he's gone. I always admired the fact that Paul actually touched on a subject like that at all. I mean, I thought that was really good of him to open himself up and make himself vulnerable like that. So that's always kind of touching to me, tear-inducing a little bit. I get choked up when I listen to that. So that's the track that I'm going to pick as far as we can do anything, just album tracks. But
okay. Looks like Joe may have froze. Kit, let's go with you.
I would say Some Days. There's so many tracks on Flaming
Try to think of a
Pie
single though. The others
that are emotional for me, but Um, I think it's, also I think it's the background of the
Right.
recording of that song, knowing that, Linda, of course, was ill. And I think that it just, when I listen to that, it's just so moving when, some days I look at you with eyes that shine. It's like he knew that their time together was not infinite.
Right.
And I just am so moved whenever I hear that. And as I said, there's so many tracks on Flaming Pie that I find moving. I mean, Little Willow as well.
Oh,
That is such a,
absolutely.
I mean, that gets you right here too.
Yeah.
But I think lately Some Days has really
Okay.
moved me
Definitely.
very much.
Right. Yeah. Good choices by the both of you so far. Mine, I get emotional with those two tracks as well, but mine for some reason has been Some People Never Know. For me, from Wildlife. I just love how Paul and Linda sing that song together. I love the lyrics, what they're singing together. No one else will ever see how much faith you have in me. To me, those lyrics are moving to me. Just as showing just how tight they are as a couple, and that's my pick. Ken.
Wow, these choices are amazing, and it's I was thinking of Some Days myself. That's such a moving song, and that the marriage of Paul and Linda was so special. They really loved each other. Probably one of the most successful couples in entertainment history. They barely were ever apart. Right. So a song like Some Days, because how tight they were with that relationship, but that wasn't a single. So if I had to pick a single, even though it wasn't a big hit, I would say probably, I don't know what it is, but this one moves me a lot. I remember after Linda McCartney died, I usually never have any problem crying when somebody dies that's major in my life. And I didn't cry when Linda died, and I kept saying, what's wrong with you? Why can't you cry? And I was working at my job in New York City, and while I was doing certain work, I played this cassette of just a mixtape of McCartney stuff, and this one came on, and it just came pouring out of me. And I don't know why that particular song does. Maybe certain words that are in the lyrics. Did I ever touch you on the cheek, say that you were mine? That kind of thing. For some reason, that song still moves me, and I always associate that song with my letting it out that night. And I don't know what it is. You said some story yourself, Joe, about a certain song that had that kind of an effect on you.
Well, I mean, I don't know which song in particular we're talking about, but with this one, as you're talking, that's another one that does the same to me. I mean, a lot of times with, you realize people that you used to know, my ex-wife, for example, I could have done this a little more, stuff like that. Yeah. You learn from past, but the subject of that should touch you. I think it does. It's touching. Don't let those moments pass.
Right.
Don't keep putting it off and procrastinating, kind of thing.
There you go. Good.
See how you feel and stuff.
Yeah. Very good. Let's say hi to Marvin. Marv just popped in. How you doing, Marv?
Hello, I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, Marvin.
Hey, Marvin.
Yeah. Good. All right.
Hey, great to talk to you. Sorry I'm late.
No, it's okay.
You're here now. You're here today. That's all that matters. Anyways.
Here today.
All right, we're moving on. We're going
to
go to yes, thank you for that question. We're going to move to Edward, my friend Edward Crawford. Ed, can you unmute yourself, and we'll ask your question. There you go, buddy.
Go.
All right. Well, it's good to talk to everybody, and that I've just good to be on, and honored to talk to everybody. So I'm going to have to rep Broad Street on this question. So as I was holding this up earlier before prior to the broadcast, just what's your thoughts on a Broad Street archive coming out? Because for me personally, I don't mind buying No More Lonely Nights another, a seventh or eighth time or something like that.
Andy wants it.
But just kind of your thoughts on that. That's really the question the possibility of it coming out in the archive series.
I want everything to come out on the archives, including
Sure.
Broad Street. And yeah, I like the music in it. Maybe the redo songs I don't like as much as the originals, although I do love that medley that Paul does early in the film when he does Wanderlust and
Here, there, and everywhere.
yeah, Here, There,
Yesterday.
Everywhere, and Yesterday. Yeah, I definitely would like to see that done. I really hope Paul is going to have all of his catalog represented, and not just stop at a certain point,
Right. I agree 100%. I would love to see a Broad Street box set with the movie. Hopefully he won't do it separate like he did with the Wings Over America box set, where he sold the rock show separately, and it wasn't in the box set. So I would hope that the movie, along with what the Rupert filmed to open it, like it did in theaters. So that would be really cool if that got some work on it. But yeah, get all of those songs on there. I'm all for it, and I want it. And Kit, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm a huge fan of the film, but I mean, yeah, for a completist collection, absolutely. The soundtrack I do like a lot, and I would love to have an archive set with that for sure. I love of course, I love No More Lonely Nights. I love the remakes of the Beatles stuff. I like the the Not Such a Bad Boy, and also I would love to hear outtakes from those sessions, other stuff he recorded at that time. So yeah, I would welcome it, and maybe some background of why he did that movie. I'd like to hear some interviews to have him explain it. But yeah, I definitely, I mean, no matter what, I'm a completist. I would welcome that. I mean, I think we'd all welcome archive sets for all this stuff. I mean, all of his albums, because no matter what, whether it was a project that was not as well received, shall we say, it's still something that it's still fascinating. It's still fascinating, and there's always something in it that is still worth studying and preserving. So yeah, I mean, I think it would be worth doing. I'd buy it.
Cool. Ken?
Well, I agree with everything that you guys have said. I do feel like when you're dealing with a legend like McCartney, everything he's ever done is a part of history and should be addressed, whether it was a success or a flop. And in this particular case, I'd love to see, a DVD Blu-ray, best quality of the movie. I'd like to see the CD remastered with outtakes from the sessions, especially with that killer band he had in there with Dave Edmunds and Ringo.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the movie.
Yeah, I'd love to hear outtakes of No Values and Not Such a Bad Boy, different takes of No More Lonely Nights, maybe even a demo of that. We're so much into demos these days. Maybe you might want to hear that, or No Values, or Not Such a Bad Boy. I actually really love Goodnight Lonely Princess, that bonus track at the very end of the CD, which I thought was very cool. It's very much in the style of a 1930s big band or Lawrence Welk type of instrumental. I love that kind of stuff. And maybe with the DVD, maybe outtakes from the movie.
Absolutely.
Might be cool.
Yeah, deleted scenes if there were any. Sure.
Yeah. And not only that, we discussed this also on Two Legs, by the way. It might fit to have Rupert and the Frog song included in there, even though there was a DVD of the animated collection, which might even fit with this whole box set, because when Broad Street came out in the movie theaters, in some theaters, it was preceded by the animated short of Rupert. So I kind of connect the two together. So yeah, you could do a lot of nice things with the box set with Broad Street.
Sure.
And we gotta look at it like, okay, so he's some of the box sets when those albums originally came out, such as like Wildlife, they were panned, and now they're coming out, and now they've been reevaluated favorably. Not that Broad Street is also, is all of a sudden going to become this masterpiece up there with Citizen Kane or anything, anything like that. But you know, the fact, like you said, Ken, it's a living legend. You know, and all of his stuff should be available to anybody who wants to buy it at any point in time in their life. In my humble opinion. So, anybody else have anything to add for that?
I'm just glad that he's addressing all of his albums.
Right.
I really do think that at some point, all of them, even the more recent ones, will come out in an archive box set at some point. We'll never hear the end of it.
Hope not. Okay, cool. Thank you very much, Edward. Appreciate your question. Yes, and now we're going to move on to the one and only. He's dressed for success over there. He's looking good. The one and only Mr. Ethan Alexanian. Ethan, my friend, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask away.
Hi, Ethan Alexanian here with the token joke question.
Right.
If you were stranded on a desert island and you could only take 10 Ringo solo albums with you, which would you take?
Oh boy.
No, I'm just kidding. So, with all this talk about
Ringo
a new
bashing.
Yeah, I know. Everyone's favorite pastime. With all this talk about a new McCartney album coming out, if you could have any one of his past collaborators of any of his solo projects, which would you like to see come back?
Boy.
I didn't get that. See, I was so too busy thinking of something else. Repeat the question, please, while Tom's thinking.
Jesus.
If you could, if any of Paul's past collaborators could come back and work with him again, which one and why?
Interesting.
I don't know.
John Lennon.
You're talking about only if the person's alive.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Despite the fact that I absolutely love the major collaborations of Elvis Costello and Eric Stewart, and I think his work was very underrated with Paul and Denny Lane, if he could seriously make an album with Stevie Wonder, I'd be the first one in line for it. You know, Stevie is my favorite person in the world outside of the Beatles, and you know, he's put out some of the most brilliant works. He's a genius, just like Paul, can play all the instruments just like Paul. If the two of them got together and really, you know, worked for a year to 2 years, you know, they could put together one of the greatest albums ever. You know, so because of my love for Stevie, that's why I would say that.
Okay.
I second that heartily. Yeah, I I know many of you know me. Yeah, I too am a Stevie, Stevie freak, and I would love the two of them to work together again. I mean, the little taste of it we got. Gosh, I'd love to see hear more of that, and yeah. To have the two of them, as you said, collaborate for a year or so. I mean, I think they definitely have more to say, and I would I would be, maybe Ken would be first in line, I'd be second in line to buy that.
Right. When this collaboration took place, I think it was 6 or 7 years ago, I think it took everybody by surprise, and we don't get to see McCartney rock out like that as much as he used to from the 70s. And I'm not going to lie, I was a big Nirvana fan in the 90s. And if he could reunite with the living members of Nirvana for a full album, I'll be first in line for that. So that's my pick.
I'd probably go with Stevie Wonder also, with Kit and Ken, just because I think out of all the artists that he collaborated with, Stevie's probably would be my favorite of the bunch. Although I like what Tom said about those rocking songs that were done, Dave Grohl, things like that. So those were good. But I'd pick Stevie.
Okay, great. There you go, Ethan. Did we satisfy your question?
I'm never satisfied. However, I am looking forward to eventually replacing Ken Womack.
Oh, shots fired. Okay. Anyways, look at the time. Anyways. Okay, thank you very much, Ethan, for your question. Ethan. Very good. Next up is Ron. Ron, will you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay. Hi, everyone. So,
Hi.
recent revelation about the meeting the Beatles had after Abbey Road and thinking about a follow-up. Let's say that came to fruition and it was going to happen. Do you think it would be a good idea, or sorry, we're better off just let it be and go on to their solo career?
Interesting. You know, what a powerful meeting that was. And I would say that I think it would be good to see what, you know, songs George would be able to get on there. I would be all for it, just because I know George's material was so strong at that point. And I know if it was to happen, I know John had some great stuff there for Plastic Ono Band. So if that were to happen, I would say I think it would make a very strong album if each song, if the 4 songs from the 3 were worked on as with their vision, and the other, you know, 3, you know, all on the same page, and work those songs the way the person that wrote those songs would want to see that song recorded. So I would say what an amazing album I think that would be. However, unfortunately, that didn't happen. But yeah, I would have been for it. Absolutely. Kit?
Boy, you know, I've thought about this question, and I'm so torn about it, because on the one hand, I feel that way, you know, like, wow, it would have been great to hear them do one more album. And on the other hand, you know, I just keep thinking, but maybe they were smart to go out on top. You know, that, I mean, it's hard. It would have been hard to top Abbey Road. I mean, you know, Abbey Road was just the perfect, in my opinion, farewell album. And I know what it became after that, but I consider, I mean, in terms of the recording, the order of recording, that Abbey Road was, you know, it was just a perfect farewell album. And could they have topped that? I don't know. Also, the way they were going in different directions, then I don't know if they honestly could have gotten together for one more. And they were all, you know, I think we talked about this on a previous show. You know, the stuff John was doing, like with the Plastic Ono Band album, you know, he couldn't have done that in my opinion, in the confines of the Beatles. I mean, I don't see him doing, you know, Isolation or something like that, or
George,
Mother,
right?
Mother particularly.
George
Right.
with some
Certainly
of the more
God.
spiritual stuff, perhaps. Maybe.
Right.
Maybe. Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see him doing that, you know, in the context of the Beatles. So in a way, I feel like it kind of happened the way it should have happened.
Right.
I you know, but I mean, sure, part of me thinks, gosh, that would have been great to have one more album. But in a way, I think maybe it happened the way it should have.
Right. Okay. Ken?
Thank you for saying what you did, Kit, because I've been saying some of the same things for quite a while. I think the 4 Beatles went in their own musical different directions in such a way that the bulk of the solo catalog consists of songs that I really couldn't hear the Beatles doing as a group. There are some songs that are Beatlesque that I could hear as Beatles songs, like Woman, which John pointed out was like a Beatles song, or even I Know from Mind Games. I can hear the Beatles backing up. But most of the songs from the solo career, I think, really belong as solo tracks. Plastic Ono Band, I can't hear Paul and George on that album. Ringo gets along with everybody. Ringo can drum for anybody. But when it comes to the 3 primary songwriters within the Beatles, and the same thing with All Things Must Pass, there's no way on earth I could ever picture John and Paul on that album. I really can't. You know, I just can't see them getting into that much of the spiritual side of George Harrison. And I'm glad those albums came out the way they did. I know that there are a lot of people, especially since I read this on social media all the time, who seem to think that if the 4 Beatles got together for some of their solo music, it would automatically be better than what they put out. I wouldn't change a thing about Plastic Ono Band or All Things Must Pass or most of the solo music. So I think that meeting was very interesting because at least what it proved was, in the case of John in particular, he acknowledged the fact that there was a problem that George didn't get enough songs. And if the Beatles could work something out where George got 4 songs and John and Paul were happy to do those George songs, they probably wouldn't have been happy to do the All Things Must Pass stuff. They even rejected it.
Yeah.
I mean,
true.
They did some of that stuff during the Get Back, Let It Be sessions. None of that stuff made their own, group recordings. It only ended up on All Things Must Pass. And instead we got For You Blue and I Me Mine, which I think is weaker than most of what's on All Things Must Pass anyway. So I think it's good the way that it went out. But if there was a way where they could compromise and John and Paul liked 4 songs from George and wouldn't mind giving him more time on the album, yeah, it could have been interesting. But at the same time, sorry to take up too much time here, it's very difficult to juggle a group and solo career at the same time.
Right.
It sounds simple, and some bands have done it for a temporary period of time, like Genesis and the Eagles. But, put yourself in the mindset of the 4 Beatles. If you're writing songs, what songs would make a Beatles album? What would make the solo album? Where do you fit them? What do you do when you go on tour? Do you do Beatles stuff? Do you do solo stuff? How do you juggle all that? I think I'm really glad the Beatles ended the way that they did from a creative point of view. The sad point about the Beatle breakup was more how it affected their relationships with each other, especially the strain with Paul.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Sorry that took so long.
No, that's all right.
We have all night. We have all night. I've always felt that the Beatles ended at the right time. I mean, history shows that. I mean, they really did well. They went out on top. And I always thought eventually it was inevitable that they had to have a dog of an album at some point, whether it went on into the 80s or what. I don't know how long it would take. But it's funny that I also wonder, they really weren't getting along that well during the Get Back sessions, and they were able to pull it together to do Abbey Road, which is very happy and upbeat, if you look at it that way. Even George Martin thought that, I don't want to work with them anymore after that. I didn't want to be bothered with them. And then they asked me to produce an album like I used to and do it, your touch and everything. So then I wonder, could it be that maybe they had one more album in them, I don't know. I wouldn't go up much farther than that. I don't want to get into dirty work or, like the Stones or anything like that,
Right.
So I don't know, it's funny. I'm very happy. I've always been happy. I love the solo careers. After you have the Beatles breakup, then you branch out into 4 avenues to enjoy. And everything the Beatles do or did together as a group, all of it's close to flawless, if not flawless. I mean, it's good to great stuff. And I don't know, one more album? I don't know if they might have been able to pull off one more. Some people I know think they could have gone on to like 73 or 4, but I don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
Thanks.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks,
Enjoyed
Ron.
that question. Thank you.
Great question.
Yep. All right. We're going to go do Jeremy. Jeremy, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
There we go. Hi, guys.
Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Jeremy.
Great work, as always. And I've got 2 quick questions. I'm going to cut right to the point.
All right.
First, it was mentioned at the beginning about Beatle Fest. And I think the older I get, I've mentioned this to Joe, even in person at the fest, is it shocks me. And again, maybe because I'm now in my 40s, I'll admit it, but I'm surprised at the under 30 crowd, how unknowledgeable they are, even with the hits of the 50 years now of the solo Beatles. It shocks me. And if you're going to a thing like Beatle Fest, and I know Ken and Joe, obviously, and all of you will, the music is great after 1970. And it just surprises me where there's really, whether it's during trivia competitions, discussions, where there's blank. And the answer is maybe I'm amazed or it's imagine. Maybe they know a little bit of that. So I just wanted to get your opinions on that. That's question 1. Question 2 is, you guys talked earlier about not liking the mix on whatever gets you through the nights. Well, in about 2.5 weeks, you're going to have a chance to hear a new mix of it. So I want to know the four of your opinions on the upcoming John Lennon Gimme Some Truth Mach 2 box sets. And I'll shut up and listen.
Okay. So first, our thoughts on the younger crowd, more knowledgeable about Beatles and not so knowledgeable about the solo careers.
Very, very knowledgeable about the solo, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, Kit, you want to start off on that?
Well, this is really funny because we were actually sort of talking about this, something similar yesterday when we were doing kind of a test for tonight. And it's actually amazing to me that even some of the over 30 crowd.
I was going to say, that was my line, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't just the under 30, and it astounds me because, you know, for example, like with Wings, I mean, Wings was a big group. I mean, I don't have to tell all of you this, but I mean, you know, they had, I mean, in the 70s, they were huge. I mean, you know, I was born in 72, and so I was, you know, a bit young when they were, you know, when they were big, but I mean, even I remember, you know, by 1980 that, you know, like in particularly the late 70s and so forth, that, you know, they had big hits. So it astounds me that some people still don't really know that material, and it's amazed me as we started doing this show that people have said to us, you know, wow, never heard those songs. And, you know, and it's amazing, like for me, and Tom, I think you've said this too, that, you know, for us, the solo years were actually our introduction to the Beatle years. You know, we kind of came into it the opposite direction.
Same here, absolutely.
Yep. And so it does kind of amaze me. And of course you still hear, you know, although Ken will tell you radio has changed so much, but for a long time, I mean, you were still hearing particularly Paul, John, and George songs on the radio. You still hear Imagine, you know, you still hear that kind of stuff. So I agree that it's amazing that there is that, you know, that there is this gap in knowledge of the years, even though, you know, they all had pretty successful careers, and I don't really, you know, have a great answer. I mean, part of it might be the way, as I said, that radio has changed, that they're not getting quite the same kind of airplay that they used to. But it's true. I mean, I was at my dentist the other day, and my dentist, of course, you know, noticed I was wearing a Beatles shirt, and he was talking about it, and his assistant, who looked in her 20s, was kind of like, you know, the dentist said to her, you know, John Lennon, Paul McCartney and all, and she knew Paul. But when he said John, she was kind of like, I think I've heard of him. And then when he said George Harrison, blank.
Right.
You know, so I don't know what the answer is, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I think part of it too is you know, growing up, you know, the when you're growing up as well. You know, I was born in 73. I really didn't get, you know, familiar with, you know, with the work of the Beatles until mid 80s. However, I did discover, you know, Paul through MTV earlier. Right. And now growing up in Michigan, where it's just, my parents were Motown heavy. I mean, everything was just a lot of Motown growing up, a lot of 70s soul growing up. So, you know, so for me, I didn't have that, you know, connection with a family member at that point in time. It wasn't until like the mid 80s, like I said, but then also, okay, in the mid 80s too, you know, you're also, you know, competing with the, you know, the divas are starting to come out now with Madonna, Whitney Houston, and then all the hair metal bands were all the rage at that point in time. So for me, when I was discovering the Beatles, it was just me to learn and discover all that stuff. So I really didn't have that help like a lot of people may have had, like if they were, you know, say 10 or 13 in the early 70s, when that stuff was getting played on the radio all the time, which then we'll give it to Ken and he can explain, you know, more about that aspect of it, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been in radio now for 40 years. And when I first started doing my show in 1982, think about it, tug of war time. There was still a lot of airplay being given to the solo Beatles. Paul had his duets that were big hits. You even had the hits from Double Fantasy and then Nobody Told Me from John. Later on, you had Got My Mind Set on You as a #1 hit. So the 80s was still a pretty big decade for the solo Beatles. But I've been doing my show now for almost 40 years, and so much has changed in radio. It has become more and more of a business. Now, I discussed something a few shows back about the fact that, you know, as artists get older, gradually, once you make it to age 55, radio doesn't care about you. The advertisers don't care about you. So they're only going to play artists that they feel attract a younger crowd. And they feel that as artists get older, their audience grows older with them, and they gradually phase out their new music of that time, which is why when Paul releases a new album, it gets minimal airplay on the radio. And certainly on stations that cater to a very young demographic, what we used to call top 40 radio, he'll get no airplay. There's no chance Paul McCartney will ever have a hit record, and certainly Ringo will never have a hit record, unless there's some kind of fluke like it's in a big movie. Or if he teams up with a major name of the time like Kanye West. You know, that's about the only way that Paul can have a hit. And that's the way that radio works. In addition to that, as radio became more and more of a business, there was this thing called consultants who ruined this business as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of testing that was done to find out what songs work well, what their audience wants to hear. And so a lot of oldie stations and classic rock stations would play only the top 300 or top 500, and it would be the same throughout the country. So if you're a parent growing up, if you're a parent and you have kids growing up, and you're playing oldies radio or classic rock radio, and a lot of the songs that you grew up on, whether it's Beatles, solo, whatever, you're not hearing anymore. That's what the young kids are being exposed to. So you might still hear Band on the Run on a classic rock station, but you're not going to hear Junior's Farm as much. And you're not going to hear the poppier stuff from Paul, like Silly Love Songs and Let 'Em In and Good Night Tonight. Those stations are not going to play that kind of music. Radio became very splintered. A lot of stuff that works on classic rock would work more on what they now call classic hits, which we used to call oldies. So only certain songs get played now. And if that's your major exposure to this music, you're not being exposed to all this other music that we grew up on from the solo music. And that's why you still hear Band on the Run, you still hear Imagine, you still hear Jet. And now I think maybe I'm amazed it's become the #1 McCartney song in his solo career. That's the one I hear the most.
And that's the live version.
Oh, I hear the studio one a lot still. But think about all those other hits, especially Paul. And you talked about Wings being big in the 70s. If you combine the hits that Paul had with Wings and the success of the albums, he was definitely within the top 3 artists of the 70s. You know, Elton John and the Bee Gees probably on top of Paul. But you wouldn't know it listening to the radio now. And a lot of the album cuts that we used to hear, like I listened to WPLJ in New York City, if anybody is in the New York area, they used to play album cuts from Wings. And they didn't just play the Paul songs. They played Medicine Jar, and they played Time to Hide. And, you know, Wino Junko got airplay. Spirits of Ancient Egypt got airplay. You'll never hear that on the radio anymore, unless it's on a Beatles show, and even then you're lucky. And that's another
tour
thing.
Show.
Yeah, well, you know, it's a plug for every little thing, but most Beatle programs on the radio stick to the group with a little bit of solo stuff. And when that goes on year after year after year, that's what young ears are hearing. And that's why if you go to the fest and you go to the trivia games that they play, they know the Beatles, they know solo in the 70s, and then it just dies off after that.
True.
Joe?
I think that there's a lot of good stuff out there. We know we agree on that, those of us who do the show. And I'm going to build on that a little bit with just the Beatles channel on Sirius XM. I was so disappointed. I mean, I like some of the discussion shows. The discussion shows I like, but it's just the same Beatles catalog regurgitated the 200 some odd songs over and over again. I was actually, as much as I love the Beatles, I was actually like, I don't want to hear any more Beatles. I don't want to hear them anymore. And then when they get to the solo stuff, it's the usual stuff. I mean, like you said, Band on the Run or Imagine, and maybe they pick. Like I remember the first time I heard like Goodnight Vienna on there from Ringo. I thought, wow, they're playing Goodnight Vienna. That's something unusual. But they stick with the few unusual ones they have. Those are the ones they regurgitate. They don't really branch off that much. And I thought that's a good opportunity for if you're a Beatles fan, you listen to the Beatles station that's playing primarily Beatles music. I mean, it should. I get that. But what would be wrong with playing 3 Beatles songs? Then you play a George Harrison solo song that maybe you haven't heard before. Then you go back to a couple of Beatles songs. You play a John, Paul, Ringo song. And not always the big hits that you know. I honestly believe that fans, young and old, because as Kit said, it's not just the younger fans, it's people, first generation fans. A lot of them stop, after 1970 or 74 maybe. And I think they get to learn them and say, I never heard this before. This is pretty good. I didn't know this song. I had somebody today, as a matter of fact, I work with. 2 examples. I just thought of this. Okay. He says, he heard a version of Fish on the Sand, the George Harrison song, was a cover by somebody else. He never heard the George song, but he found this cover of it and said, I got to hear the George Harrison song now because I really like the cover. And then he plays, here's another one I like from George, he tells me, and he plays Cheer Down, which he'd never heard before, and he loved it. And I know my friend Anthony, affectionately known on my channel as Anthony, he told me he came across a couple of Ringo songs, Drowning in the Sea of Love, of all things, which Tom mentioned earlier, and he loves the song now. And a couple of other songs from Rotogravure they played, and he was like, I like that too. Of all albums, go figure. And this guy, Anthony, as much as I love him, he will not, he doesn't go past 73 or so, with the popular songs. Right. So there you go. I don't know why that is, but I think if you heard them more, you'd like a lot of them.
Can I add one thing here? I like to observe people and ask them their musical tastes all the time. My favorite subject is music, not just the Beatles. You will find, and we talked about this a few shows back, that there are studies where once you hit the age of about 30, you don't have that much interest in new music anymore. I'm not saying it's everybody, but there are patterns in human behavior. You have 1 to 2 decades of music that have an impact on your life, your adolescence, teenage years, and to some degree in your 20s, and that's it. Now, for some of us, because we love the Beatles so much, and we got into the solo music, some of us solo first, we carried on and still followed it. But a lot of people, once that 10, 20-year period was done, that's it. It's part of human behavior. I can't explain why, but whatever music you've heard, and this is kind of interesting because, Tom asked me to post my 10 favorite albums of all time on Facebook, like, this game that a lot of us have played before. And I was shocked to learn that when I posted mine, because I never put together this list, 9 of the 10 were from the 60s and 70s. Those are my favorite 2 decades. Okay, and I love the 80s a lot. But for most people, if you did the same thing, you'd find that it's within like a 20-year span. And so, you've got that to think about as well.
True. Okay, cool. And the second part real quick, Jeremy, do you mind if we answer that part when we do the show on, when we review that album? If you don't mind, so we can get to other people. And the question was, how, what are our feelings on the mix of the new Give Me Some Truth box set. So we'll definitely cover that.
We'll be covering it.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your question, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Yeah. So next we're going to go to Vivian. So please, Vivian, unmute yourself and let's talk.
Hey, congratulations on your 50th episode. Thanks so much for having all of us on.
Thank you.
So my question is about the song Now and Then. one of John's demo songs that Yoko chose for the Beatles anthology project. The one that didn't get finished, supposedly because George is quoted as saying it was effing rubbish. And the verses weren't complete, and so it was shelved. And Paul is quoted as saying, we all decided it's not one of John's greatest songs, but Jeff Lynne, the producer, and Jeff Emmerich, the engineer, both said that they wished it had been completed. And the writer of Lennon the Musicals was quoted as saying it was the saddest, most poignant love song that Lennon ever wrote. And I couldn't agree more. I love this song. I love all the add 9 chords that make it feel so wistful. And when I hear it, it always makes me emotional. And I've cried multiple times listening to that song. So my question is, what is your opinion of this song? Do you think it should have been completed?
Cool. Joe?
I need to hear it again to really give you a solid answer on it. I know that I've only heard it once, believe it or not, and it didn't really grab me. But then again, Free as a Bird, I thought was, a weak choice. I think Real Love was my favorite out of those. But, I have mixed feelings on whether or not they should try to release it. Some people say, even though George isn't here, try, maybe Paul can do something with it, and Ringo. I have mixed feelings on that. I don't know. We had the Threedles, they say. Now we have the Toodles, I guess they call it. I don't know how I'd feel about that either. The song itself, as I say, I can't really comment based on just the one time I heard it. I don't know why it is that I never really given it a lot of listens or anything. Kind of lost interest. I feel like a lot of people would love the Beatles to carry on. Let's get another Beatles song. I'm okay if they never do anything with that, but if they do, I'll listen and give it a good opinion.
Okay, cool. Ken?
I love the song myself, but I think what's far more important is what the Beatles thought of it. And if George was against it, and Paul has always maintained that the Beatles were a democracy and nothing would go out unless all of them approved it, if you know on record that George didn't want it to go out, then they shouldn't finish it. And also, I believe part of the reason why George didn't want it out is because at the time there was a loud hum throughout the recording. And I think there's a way where you can remove it now. But if George was against it, I would honor his wishes.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I tend to agree with you on that. It's not a bad song. I think it's, if John gave it, a little bit more attention, and completed it, and maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's a good song. I don't really consider it up there myself as high as you, Vivian, unfortunately. But again, maybe that might happen. I'd give it a few more spins, and then I really, understand the full power of the song. But I agree with Ken. I mean, if George was against the song, then he must have had a strong enough opinion on it to not want to work with it. And I'm sure he was probably tired of Paul at that point in time too. So
I just want to interject. That's an interesting point that Ken brought up. George, if he didn't like it, but then I was thinking, we also wonder what did John think? He didn't say no, but he didn't say yes either. So I wonder if that aspect of this case kind of goes out the window or not.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've listened to it, and I'd have to, go back. But I do remember, Ken, as you're mentioning the hum issue, and it would be interesting to see what could be done with it now, because that was back in 90, 94, 95. I bet with Pro Tools and so forth, I bet you could do a lot more with it now. Although this does make me think of, I wish that there would be a release from the Lennon estate with more of these demos and all, instead of another greatest hits package. I would like to see more things like that. I mean, I wish wish there'd be something like that, but we'll get to that in when the box set comes out. But I would like to, hear more of this kind of thing. But yeah, for whatever reason, George didn't like it, and part of it may have been burnout, working with the others. Part of it may have been the hum, but yeah, for whatever reason, they just decided it wasn't as good. I'm not sure why, but now I'll have to, after this is over, I'm going to have to go back and listen to that again, because it's been a while. So,
I want to give it a closer listen after Vivian said how much she likes it and how it moves her.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I add one more thing?
Please.
No.
What I find kind of baffling is that from everything that I've heard, when Yoko gave the cassette to Paul of John's songs, Grow Old With Me was also in there.
Right.
And I've never heard why they didn't even tackle that. They never even bring up the song. And of course, Ringo covered it recently. Ringo didn't even seem to know the song at all, even though it was released on Milk and Honey. I just don't understand.
Ringo's another one not listening to the solo music.
There you go. But Grow Old With Me would be a standard today if there had been a full, complete studio version of the song. It's such an amazing song. It was one of my wedding songs, by the way. But yeah, and they never bring up Grow Old With Me. I don't understand that.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, Vivian, thank you very much for that question. Thank you for being here.
Great question.
And,
great question.
All right, let's move to Bruce. Bruce, unmute yourself and let's hear what your question is.
Oh, good evening, everybody.
Hey.
So I don't know. I almost feel like I just want to ask only Ken Michaels this question.
Uh-oh.
Go for it.
You may see why. Because I think we're rough. I was born in 1960. I don't know what year Ken, if he wants to say.
59.
59.
Yep.
So, I lived through the whole Beatles stuff. I saw Hard Day's Night in the theater and Help and all the films in the theater. And for a time up until 1970, I refused to listen to any other music but the Beatles. So, but in the 70s, when I wanted to start reading about them, there were really a dearth of books compared to what we have, like 100,000 books today. And the first one, this one here, this was such a huge, amazing, important book at that time. And revisiting it, even remembering it then, it's interesting to watch this your podcast because of so much positivity about the solo career. And this book was so dismissive of pretty much every release except for maybe Band on the Run and Imagine. Ken, you said your favorite album is Living in a Material World. This book trashes it.
Ugh.
And then you think about the reviews in the major rock publications, Rolling Stone and Cream and Circus, and they were dismissive of all this stuff that, as you said, has now been reevaluated, obviously. So I guess my question to Ken first, but then to the others, is what, early on in your discovery of this music and you're wanting to read about it, what articles or what books were influential in terms of your own tastes about it?
Well, I mean, the only books that I remember buying in the 70s would be All Together Now, which was, a discography, which took you through 1975, Beatles and solo. I read Nicholas Schaffner's book, The Beatles Forever, which I enjoyed at the time. One Day at a Time. I forget what year that came out, from Anthony Fawcett. But I didn't pay too much attention what the press said. I just listened to the music for myself. And when I listened to it, it's not like I automatically loved everything from the solo Beatles. I took the time and I listened to it. It was very natural for me, if I loved the group, for me to love the solo stuff, because it was just a continuation of more of the same thing, only developing more of their individual styles. And I think that for people who wanted to cling on to the group so much, it was hard for them to adapt to this tremendous change of 4 solo careers, which happened to be doing so extremely well. I always bring up the charts here on the show. And, there's always been this attitude with certain people, some that I even work with, that as great as the solo careers are, it can never compare to what they did as a band. And there may be some of you who watch the show who still feel that way anyway. But that shouldn't even matter. It still has value. Everything has a place. And I've grown to love all 4 of them for their individual styles. I really got, especially 1973, which I always, say is the greatest year in the Beatles because of all the solo music that came out that year. But to have something as spiritual as Living in the Material World, which really affected me, I thought it was deeply personal. I love the spiritual side of George. I love the sound of his vocals. I love his slide guitar. I came to love all that stuff on All Things Must Pass. And obviously it all started within the group, but I think a lot of people kind of miss the collaboration within the four of them. It's hard for them. The Beatles left such an impact on the world, not just as musicians, but as personalities. And, you know, they work so well together in every aspect. And it's hard for some people. A lot of people are so fixated on the group that they can't move on past that. And it's a shame.
Well, I think your show has actually helped for people of my, of our generation to reevaluate it, because we do take we were so broken up by the breakup that it was really hard. I mean, it's hard for people who were born in the 70s to really understand that we felt it was not a betrayal, but it was such a tragedy.
See, we did a show on this, and I really disagreed, because there was so much music coming out in 1970 alone. I never felt the loss. There was continuous music. It never just stopped. In 1970 alone, we had All Things Must Pass, Plastic Ono Band, McCartney, Sentimental Journey, Bukuza Blues, and Let It Be.
Right.
That's a lot of music in one year.
Good point.
So
but we knew that magic between Lennon and McCartney and Harrison, it was just something that could never be matched on some level.
Well, there's the beauty of the chemistry within the group, and then there's also exploring your individual styles and having the freedom to work with different people, which can produce very fascinating and equally fulfilling results. And I've grown to really love the four Beatles as individuals just as much as I ever did as a band. And I really do believe this. I am genuine when I say this. I enjoy most of their solo work just as much as what they did as a group. I'm not saying it's better, but it all has its place, So, and the mere fact that they did so well on the charts in the 70s and 80s proved that when it was played on the radio to a young demographic audience, that's how they responded. So they liked it too. So it wasn't just me.
So just the old fart critics were just
some of them were. But I don't want to take away anything from how great the Beatles were as a group. I will never deny that. They were the greatest group ever. Nothing can ever compare to that. But, I don't think people realize how rare it is that all four of them had successful solo careers. Name any other band that had that kind of success on their own. To be able to do it twice. Who you were going to say something, Tom?
So the closest that may have been would have been Genesis, as a band that was successful, together, not until really the 80s, but then, members of that band, ex-members and members that were still in the band had successful solo careers. But I don't think to the level and to the length that maybe that the Fabs did. So. Right. But I do want to thank you, Bruce, for noticing that our positivity on a lot of these releases, because I think it is important for maybe like people like myself and Kid who are a little bit younger and didn't come into these albums like say you did, Bruce, and to look at it and to a different light, or look at it with a different set of eyes, and to not really necessarily believe what you read maybe in Rolling Stone or in Cream. Listen to it for yourself, and maybe you'll find out that in your opinion it might be better than what those people write in their review, whether or not they give it 1 star or 5 stars. It really depends on your ears, really. And so one of the things that we wanted to accomplish was kind of more like have a more positive aspect on this music, because it deserves it, really. So
well, one of our favorite series we like to do is Another Listen, because I mean, some of the albums when they first came out, of course, most famously Ram, were just trashed when they first came out. I mean, absolutely panned. And so we love doing those episodes where we say, all right, let's go back to those albums that critics just ripped apart at the time of the release. And you're right. I mean, some of the critics and books, as you mentioned, just rip them apart and say, were they really that bad? And and listen to them with fresh ears, 30 or more years later, and were they really that bad? And a lot of times they weren't. Part of it was just, as you mentioned, it was sort of the time that they came out, and people saying, well, this can't compare to what they did, with the Beatles. Well, of course not. I mean, of course this doesn't compare. It isn't the Beatles. This is it's Paul. It's a new era. And
Ram was the one I was shocked by. I could understand Wildlife and even Red Rose Speedway, but Ram, I was shocked. Like, even as an 11-year-old or 10-year-old, I was saying, how could they hate? How could that be hated?
Oh, that was trashed. Yeah, absolutely trashed. And now it's really, now considered a classic,
It's
and
considered as best by a lot of people.
Yeah.
It just goes to show, over time, people's opinions can change. And I don't want to say that the Beatles as a group were better than the solo. I don't ever want to say that, because you might actually prefer some of the solo music to what they did as a band. I've had people come up to me and say that they prefer John as a solo artist to what he did in the Beatles. I had someone come to our house here once who fixed our computer, saw all the work that I did on the Beatles, and I was telling him all about it. And he told me his feelings about the group and solo music. And he said to me he'd rather listen to a George Harrison album than a Beatles album. Wow. When people say that to me, I don't make fun of them. I want to know why. I respect their opinion. If for some reason George Harrison's music moves you in a way and does it for you more than what he did with the Beatles, all the more power to you. These people are tremendously talented on their own. They were great individual talents when they were in the Beatles.
Cool. Excellent. How's that, Bruce? Is that all right?
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Great. I think we
question.
have time for one more, kid, or should we want to keep
going? We could do a couple more.
Don't forget, you could always make this a two-parter. On when you upload it.
True. I can always do a two-parter. Yeah, that's
all
true.
right. Let's all-nighter then, folks. I hope you got your pillows. So
I'd like to get everybody's questions in if we can.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's move on. Karen, you are next. Please unmute yourself and let's see what you got. There you go.
Hi, I want to thank you all for the show, and congratulations.
Well, we're having a little hard time hearing you.
For the work you do on your other shows, I listen to them all and appreciate all the work. So my
having trouble hearing her.
Yeah, having trouble hearing you, Karen.
I will try if I need
or
to
you can.
chat.
Yeah, you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, put it in the
if
chat.
you want.
But my question is, I think, fairly specific, but might rack your brains a little. I decided I wanted to ask each of you, can you hear me?
It's a little hard. It's it's a little garbled. Can if you want, it's really garbled. If you want, you can put it in the chat. You can type it in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, that might be.
I'm going to chat it right here.
Yeah, that might. Really. Yeah, we want to hear we want to get to your question. We want to hear your question. So yeah, it's just really delayed.
All right. So do we? All right. While
why don't we go to Ed's, and then Karen, we'll go back to yours when you put it in the chat. Is that okay? I think. Okay. Excellent. Okay, we'll go to Ed, and then we'll go back to you, Karen.
All right. When they was Fabs, the one and only Mr. Ed Chen. Ed, please. How you doing?
Hi, Ed.
All right. So looking at the backgrounds here, who was the better muse, Yoko or Linda? And you can throw Nancy and Olivia in there if you want, but I don't think the volume compares.
Wow. Ken, you want to start?
Who was the better what?
Muse.
Oh,
Linda or
Muse,
Yoko?
The collective songs John wrote about Yoko and Paul wrote about Linda. Which set is better?
Wow. As a muse, I'd have to go a bit more with Yoko, only because not only did John write songs about Yoko, but Yoko was also involved with John's music and making suggestions with it. And she also affected his growing love for avant-garde and experimental films. So it went beyond just the music with Yoko. But with Linda, you could also say she influenced him with the vegetarian lifestyle, and it was also beyond the music with her. But overall, because I think of Yoko as being, the biggest influence on John's life, although we had a debate about that, I would probably go with Yoko.
I just did, I think. Can you see what I just tell you?
Well, somebody.
Can you see?
That's
somebody needs to mute.
Breaking back in there, yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Oh, I'm still hearing it.
I think it is muted, though. It looks like it's muted.
No, it looks like everybody's muted. That's weird.
Okay, so her question was, I want to ask each of you for 3 to 5.
Oh, wait, we have to get to Ed's.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Okay.
We're still going with Ed.
Okay. So, Joe, you want to answer the question?
It's a tough question because, I mean, they're kind of equal. I hate to cop out like that. But
Can you say that? I don't know
sorry,
what that feedback is. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So it is live, everybody.
It's live.
Yeah,
This
if
is
you're
not
not,
on film. This
if
is
you're
all
unmuted,
coming
please
live before
mute.
you're on. Anyway, but I'm gonna go. I'll give the slight edge to Yoko. I think is even more of an influence on John. But both of them, it's hard to say. Both of them were so influential on their husbands. I don't know what to say. I feel I'll give Yoko a slight nod in the songs too. Maybe song-wise, I think that the songs that John wrote with Yoko in mind were maybe overall more in number and possibly more emotional. I don't want to take anything from Paul though, because there's so many. Like maybe I'm Amazed Alone, which I think is maybe his greatest song outside of the Beatles, which is really kind of Beatles era too. But yeah, it's a hard question. It's a good question, but I'll give Yoko the edge.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one.
Boy, that is.
Yeah, on the, I'll just go with the written song, and I'll give it a slight edge to Linda. You've got what pretty much almost 30 years of song. Unfortunately, we just didn't get as much from John. When it comes to songs that written for Yoko, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of them, but we got more from Paul about Linda throughout those 30 years. And, like you said, Joe, maybe I'm Amazed, this one, Only Love Remain. I mean, the list is not endless.
My Love.
My Love, Two of Us, which is, Paul said that was for Linda, so right off the bat, I mean, I think he's writing great stuff with Linda in mind. So if you just go with the song aspect of it, I'll go with Linda. But I do agree with Ken that I think that Yoko was a bigger muse in just his whole personality and a bigger influence in him as a person.
But with the songs, though, I just want to say, I wonder how many of them are more generic love songs, like Only Love. I don't know if Only Love Remains was attributed to Linda specifically, but something like that. I mean, we know about My Love and some of the songs that you mentioned, but sometimes I'm thinking maybe they were just general love songs that could apply to anybody, not necessarily.
Okay, fair enough. Fair point. That's true. Yeah. Okay, Kit.
Yeah, boy, this is a tough call because Yoko obviously was a huge influence on John, but I guess I would have to give the slight edge to Linda here because as well because I think that they were songwriting partners. Linda certainly did do a lot of backing vocals with harmonies with Paul, and they were good at it. I mean, they were good harmony vocals, and as we've said, boy, was she a great inspiration for some incredible songs. Maybe I'm amazed. My love, as we've talked about. I mean, those are now, practically standards. I just and even some others. I mean, yeah, I don't know if Only Love Remains is specifically about Linda, but it certainly could be. Talking about Some Days again, I'm not sure, but I just feel like he wrote some of his best ballads when they were together, and I just think that she really, clearly he wanted her by his side when he was after the Beatles broke up and he wanted to start the new phase of his career, and she inspired him to do it. I mean, as we all know the story about how depressed he was after the Beatles broke up, and she was the one who said, come on, you're Paul McCartney. You've got to get yourself together and move on. And so, she really inspired him to start a new group and start a new career. So, so she certainly had a huge influence on him too. So I guess I would give the very slight edge in terms of music, particularly to Linda.
Okay, cool.
All right.
Good question.
Good question.
Thank you, Ed. Now getting back to Karen, her question.
Yes.
I want to ask each of you for 3 to 5 recommendations of your favorite Paul interviews, audio or on visual. So I like that one.
Yeah.
I'll start right off the bat. 1980, the McCartney interview with Vic Arborini. I think that's a very great quality interview from Vic. I mean, that was the interview that was really much the interview that got Paul talking about the Beatles again. Then there was the interview that with Chris Celovich conducted for Q magazine back in '86. That's another great open, one of the more candid interviews you'll ever see from Paul McCartney. So that is actually that's on YouTube as well. So you can find that. So you can find both of those interviews. And then the from Conversations with McCartney book by Paul DeNoyer, there's a lot of really good interviews that he's conducted with Paul McCartney starting, I think, in the late 80s. So those are 3 that I think are quality interviews. Joe, what about you?
You mentioned some good ones. Also, I like the John Fugelsang one around the Flaming Pie time, around 97-ish. That's good. I also like the David Frost interview that was done around that time as well with Paul. Some of it was included in the new Flaming Pie set, but it's a very small portion of it. And I'm trying to think, when it comes to Paul, I'm trying to think of interviews where it's not a lot of the same stuff, like how he wrote Yesterday, or how John helped him write some of, Getting Better and stuff like that. And boy, it's hard to come with other ones. I'm thinking there was a call-in show once, and I forget the guy's name. It was a VH1. Maybe some of you know. Was it Bobby Rivers? Was that his name?
Yeah, that sounds right.
A call-in show visually that had a lot of interesting questions from the audience too. I think a lot of times when the audience asks questions, you might get some different stuff, especially if somebody is really into Paul and the Beatles, and it's not just a generic person saying, "Gee, how did it feel when you were on the Ed Sullivan Show?" Something a little different. There's a Tim Rice interview from 1980 that was pretty good, around the time of McCartney too. I like that one as well. And then trying to go through the whole shebang. Wow. That's it for now. So the ones that come to mind.
Okay, Ken.
It's a really tough question. I'm sure I'm going to regret one that I forgot to bring up, but definitely the McCartney interview that you mentioned from 1980 that came out on album.
Yeah.
I think it was Playgirl. He gave an interview, the one where he kind of trashed Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
This was
Hey.
around. But anytime he's revealing whether I agree with him or not, there was one interview where he was saying, "Well, it's all Quincy Jones music anyway." And I'm like, "Whoa!" For someone who's Mr. Diplomat, for him to say anything like that, that really impressed me. The one that was a Chris Alwich, Tom,
Yeah.
the one that came out on bootleg.
Yes, yeah.
Very, very open and revealing. That was 1986, was it?
1986. Here's the bootleg. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I would mention that. I also seem to remember when the Liverpool Oratorio came out and Bob Costas interviewed Paul, and I think he did a great job with Paul. You always think of Bob Costas for sports, but sometimes,
that was, yes.
He can interview entertainers really well.
Right.
Certain people are like that. Those are ones that stick out for me. And yeah, I love John Fugelsang. It's kind of a very light interview, the town hall one, but those are ones that stick out. But I know once the show is over, I'm going to say, damn, I forgot.
Right. There's something I forgot that if I could just throw it in that's pretty major. Now, I don't know how anybody's going to feel, depending on how you feel about Howard Stern, but sometimes he gets stuff out of people, for better or worse, that you wouldn't ordinarily get out of people or ask people. Now, Howard's a big Beatles fan, so a lot of times it's pretty basic stuff, actually, that we know, and Beatles related, not solo or anything like that, really.
Right.
But I remember the one, I think it was around the time when he was first going out with Heather, I think in 2001, and it was Driving Rain, and it was I don't know if Driving Rain was just out because they were playing From a Lover to a Friend on the show. And he talks a little about Michael Jackson, and he gets him to talk a little about Yoko, trying to get something out of him, dish the dirt, as he says. And then at one point, I know in that interview, Paul says, now you got me going. If we were just hanging out,
I remember that one.
The dirt with you, but now you got me started or whatever. So I don't know. You might get something a little more out of the ordinary when you watch a Howard Stern interview.
Right. Okay, cool. Kit?
Just a couple that come to mind, and I wish I could remember the authors. I know the magazines. There was one from, I believe, 87, and it's unfortunately a defunct magazine. It was a great one, Musician. And it was around the time that All the Best came out. And Paul was and I think the headline, it was the cover story of the magazine, and I think it was Paul Gets Angry. And it was, after Press to Play. And as I said, All the Best was out, and it was a really revealing interview because he was clearly at this crossroads where he was trying to figure out his next move. He was feeling that, John was being made to be that, he was the true
genius,
artist and genius of the group. And I had never seen Paul as angry as in this interview. And feeling that he had taken these chances with Press to Play and it backfired, and so he was trying to figure out his next move, and so it was a very I just had never seen him like this. That in the one hand he was looking back with this album with All the Best, but he was also sort of trying to figure out where to go and what is like about his legacy. And so it was really revealing. Flash forward to 89, and it was either 89 or 90, and it was a cover story for Rolling Stone. And, Flowers in the Dirt came out. He was on the world tour. And it was, as I recall, I think the cover was him with a huge guitar. It was like kind of a silhouette almost. It was like almost looked like a kind of an old photograph. And they were talking, he was talking about the tour, and it was some great, backstage stuff. I remember talking about, and he was in just such a different mood. And I just remember this wonderful anecdote he gave about listening to Quincy, talking about Quincy Jones, Jones's new album, Back on the Block, that was out at the time, and that he was dancing to it backstage. And, so it was like a completely different, frame of mind that he was in. So if you want to get, some ideas of where he was in the late 80s, how he went from this kind of down period to then his comeback. Those are two good articles to read, Musician and Rolling Stone.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you, Karen. Great question.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry we couldn't hear you, but we still got to it.
Yes. Okay, let's move on to Mark Z. Mark, I believe it's Zutkov. Is that how you pronounce it? Please.
Yes, it is.
Thank you for joining us. What's going on?
My pleasure. I have 7 questions, but I'm only going to ask one.
All
right. But before that, let me just mention, I love the podcast, but just be careful about doing too many Paul-centric episodes, particularly in a row. Leave that for Tom.
What about me?
You have your own podcast? No. Besides things we said today. I know about that.
And every little thing.
And every little thing. Okay. Anyway, the question is about...
Check is in the mail, Mark. Thank you. No, I'm just teasing.
The question is about the solo Beatles as producers. Which albums or album tracks or singles are your favorites that the solo Beatles produced for other people? And let's make sure all 4 Beatles are covered. So you can either do 1 per host, or feel free to do 2 each if you want to.
Well,
I pass. You got me on a weak thing. I'm trying to think.
Right off the bat, when you think George Harrison, you think the work he did for Badfinger.
Okay.
And then again for Paul, you think he had a lot of success with Mary Hopkins, producing her first album. For John, did he co-produce?
Harry Nilsson.
Yes, the Pussycats.
And also Elephant's Memory.
Elephant's Memory. Right. Ringo, I'm not familiar if he did any producing. Did he?
Yep.
Only for himself for the most part.
David Henschel, Startling Music.
Yeah.
I have that album.
Okay. Kit, I'll try to think of some more while I'm at it.
Well, actually, when you mentioned Ringo producing himself, I actually like him as his own producer. I thought, because I'm sure there'll be people throwing virtual Rotten Tomatoes at me right now, but I was getting sick of the Mark Hudson stuff, to be honest with you. I was kind of glad when he moved away from that and moved on to work with other people.
No tomatoes here, Kit. No tomatoes.
Well, okay, thank you.
It was very good at first, and it was the right move. But I thought for me it got a little samey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so when he started producing himself was it Why Not? Was that the first one that he self-produced?
Liverpool 8 was half. Was Liverpool 8 half?
That was with Dave Stewart.
Dave Stewart, I think, jumped on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
I really liked what he did. I mean, I thought, I wasn't sure how it was going to sound self-produced, but, he really, I think, well, obviously knows what he likes and was, very impressed and more stripped down than Mark Hudson's. It just was just more straight rock and roll, and I thought it was better in some ways. So I really liked him as a self-producer.
Okay, Ken.
That's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
With Paul, definitely Mary Hopkins. I mean, I love the production on Postcard, the whole album. Something like that. McGear.
Yeah.
You could say. I tend to think of the 4 Beatles producing themselves more than anything else, rather and writing for other people as opposed to producing. Although George did a lot of production for other people like Billy Preston and Doris Troy, the Apple artist there, and Badfinger. I do love the production on the 4 cuts on Straight Up, although Todd Rundgren has said that he did a lot of extra work after George Harrison finished, so you shouldn't give all the credit to George there. I love the production on Splinter. The Place I Love. That's a great album. It's like, just like the McGear is the Lost McCartney and Wings album, Splinter is the Lost George Harrison album to me. So I would say those. Ravi Shankar stuff. Great production on that. Chance of India. Yeah. So John, you got to think of Yoko, Approximately Infinite Universe, Elephant's Memory, David Peel, those artists, and definitely Harry Nilsson with Pussycats. Ringo, I can't really think of aside of David Henschel, because I think of Ringo producing for himself. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, the albums with Mark Hudson were co-productions with Mark. Although I'm sure Mark dominated, but Ringo oversaw everything. And I do like the albums post Mark Hudson production-wise, which Bruce Sugar produced with him. Yeah. Did I cover it all?
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
Ringo also produced a couple of his own B-sides very early on. He's credited as early 1970, and lineman was Ringo and Klaus, which was Ringo's
producer. Okay, great.
But cool. Good picks. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. That was an excellent question.
Some of these are tough.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, dang, you guys really.
Okay. All right, the man with the Talk More Talk background, Mark P. Mark, please.
There he goes.
And let's see what you got, my friend.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, Mark.
Yep.
All right. First of all, congratulations on 50 episodes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And in light of John Lennon's upcoming Give Me Some Truth compilation album, I know over the years there's been plenty of compilation albums, and I'm just wondering.
You got them all right there, right?
Yeah.
What are your guys' favorite compilation albums?
Interesting. Okay, Joe, you want to start off?
Yeah, well, Ringo has one out that, I like the one that you showed there for Ringo, not Blast from Your Past, because that's kind of lightweight.
Photograph.
The one, you photographed the best of Ringo, but there's another one out that's a 2 CD set. I don't know whether it's an unofficial release or a Russian release.
I think it was a Russian one you're talking about.
You know the one I mean?
Yeah, he's getting like a star, standing like a star on the cover on the beach.
Yeah. That goes up to Postcards for Paradise. So that's pretty. The whole series of those are good. There's Paul, there's George, and everything. But out of the regular ones we're talking about, I've always liked Wings' Greatest. I just always wish that they had Listen to What the Man Said on there. That's the only qualm I have with it. But I don't know what you'd take off if you had to. Back then, that's the only place that really got the good versions of like Junior's Farm on an album, and a complete. And Mull Kintyre had to be on there, so I don't know what you would take off really. So for Paul, I really like that one. And for George, I've never been that thrilled with any of the George ones actually.
Right.
It's funny. I don't think he's been done justice really. Again, in that series, the Russian series of what I'm speaking of, there's a 2 CD set that's really good. But the regular ones, I always thought he got short shrifted, of course, on the one Best of George Harrison, where one side is Beatles. Although I would argue, and I often do, that those are some of the best of George. Some of those songs, Something, Here Comes the Sun. All that kind of stuff. Those are among the best of George anyway. But I think they wanted to let it roll to be longer originally, and I think the company wanted it to be cut down, if I remember. I think the Harrisons wanted it a little longer.
Okay.
And Best of Dark Horse is good, because it's got stuff on there like you don't get anywhere else, like Poor Little Girl, which I love that song.
Cockamamie Business.
Cockamamie Business is a lot of fun.
Cheer Down.
And Cheer Down, one of my favorites. As far as John goes, shaved fish is like the one that, at first I was like thrilled to have when I was a lot younger. And it's not the best now because the quality isn't as good as some of the later releases. And also, some of the songs are not complete.
They're not complete, and some of them have different mixes on them too, I believe.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's not the best choice right now for John, I wouldn't say. Maybe Working Class Hero or Lennon Legend.
Okay.
That's it.
Kit?
I would say Photograph for sure. I think that's definitely the best Ringo hits collection out there. Pretty complete. Sounds really good. I think for George, Best of Dark Horse. I agree. I think that's probably the best one out there. Let It Roll, I was a little disappointed in. For Paul, Wingspan was a little disappointing for me. I mean, I have it, but I thought it was a little oddly put together. I mean, there was some of the choices for the tracks were a little odd. I thought, I mean, All the Best, as I mentioned, it's a good basic compilation, but of course, no Mull of Kintyre, things like that. So, I mean,
well, here, anyways, in the States.
Yeah. Not here, exactly. Right. So that's kind of frustrating. So it's not. And then I don't have Pure McCartney. That one I did not get. So that I haven't really found any that I've really. I guess I'm picky. So, so none of the collections have really set me on fire. I mean, the greatest hits. As far as John goes, I'll be interested to see how this one coming up sounds. Mm-hmm. And Shaved Fish is okay. It's basic, but probably was Working Class Hero. That was one, I think, and that was okay. This one coming up could actually, even though it's yet another collection, I like the remastering that I've heard so far. So this could be promising.
Cool.
So we'll see. But actually, Photograph, I think, is one of the better done recently of the greatest hits collection. So I wish the others would take a cue from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think probably 95% of them are not perfect. I mean, they have something wrong with them, or a track missing, or whether they're shortened or whatnot. But
right,
for me, when I first started, I love Blast from Your Past. I thought that was probably the best greatest hits out of all of them, because you had pretty much everything there, including.
And it is very good. It's a nice way to get a lot of good Ringo stuff.
Yeah, including 1970. Early 1970s. So. I thought that was the best one at that point in time in my early fandom. You mentioned Wingspan, and I laugh at that because you don't really have any tracks on there that's sung by any other members of Wings on it. But I do like Pure McCartney, even though it does have its faults. Nothing from Driving Rain or Flowers in the Dirt. But as a collection, from the beginning to where to when it came out, was it like 16 or 17 when it came out? From that it was pretty good. I thought you had a nice collection from 70 all the way up until I think Hope for the Future was, I think,
that was on there.
It was on there too. So you had a good set there. So, but Ken, what say you?
I think that the ones that came out in the 70s were fine for its time. Shaved Fish, Blast from Your Past. And like you said, Blast from Your Past, if you only cared about the hits, it has everything that you need on it, really. Same thing with Shaved Fish. The Best of George Harrison was a complete, absolute travesty and a big insult to George, where half of the songs were Beatles recordings. It should have been just solo. When you think about the fact that George Harrison, how he kicked off with All Things Must Pass, from 1970, he was the darling, for a few years there, and everybody was watching him. And then he had the concert from Bangladesh and a #1 album with Living in the Material World. And they couldn't do a full album of the Best of George solo. That was terrible.
Yeah.
Wings' Greatest was fine for its time, although, like you said, Joe, how can you not have listened to what the man said? #1 single on there. You know, I think the ones that have come out on John suit its purpose for its time. The John Lennon Collection, when that came out, was good because it included all the double fantasy stuff and what he did in the 70s. And I like most of the Lennon ones, especially the ones that go deep, like Working Class Hero is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
I love the fact that all the hits are covered in there, and then you've got a lot of album cuts that are excellent cuts. And a song like Out the Blue, which I've always been raving about, to see that included in a compilation, so you don't have to go to the Mind Games album to find it. When they handpick these other songs that weren't the hits, that's what I find most fascinating, because a lot of new fans will pick up these collections first, and then hopefully they'll discover those songs along with the hits. Working Class Hero I thought was fine, as was Legend. And in a way, Give Me Some Truth is very much like Working Class Hero.
Yeah.
You know, song selection, although Angela is in the new one, that's kind of different for a Lennon collection. Of all the Ringo ones, Photograph is the best because it encompasses everything up to that point
right
in his career. Although Starstruck was a great collection because it was all the
Volume 2.
Yeah, it's all the post-Capitol stuff. So if you want to have those few singles like A Dose of Rock and Roll, you know, Drowning in the Sea of Love, Wings, those songs, and all the album cuts too, that was fine. That's for the real completist that wants to hear stuff beyond the singles. And even then, A Dose of Rock and Roll, after the Capitol stuff, was the only top 48 he had, except for Rack My Brain.
Rack My Brain,
Yeah. So, you know, it's an excellent compilation. But for something that covers his entire solo career up to that moment, Photograph was a great compilation. For George, I actually kind of like Starstruck. I like the Best of Dark Horse, although that only covers the Dark Horse, the music on his label.
Right.
And it doesn't have this song.
No, it does not.
Which that was the first single he released on his own label, of his own. And that was kind of strange. But to have those 3 bonus tracks, I think that was, for a concise period of time, just like Starstruck, it really did a great job. I'm not that crazy about Let It Roll. I don't like the fact that there's 3 songs from Bangladesh and you have to put Beatles songs in there. You shouldn't have to do that. Right. When it comes to certainly John, Paul, and George, and Ringo, you need at least 2 discs or more to cover their entire careers up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Probably when it comes to Paul, I might pick Pure McCartney. I mean, it's got most of the hits without having anything from Flowers in the Dirt, which was a big mistake as far as I'm concerned. But I like all the album cuts that he put in there. Like Don't Let It Bring You Down is one of my favorite songs from the Wings period. And just to know these were favorites of his, this is like his playlist. It's kind of a different approach. But as far as what satisfies me the most, I'd probably go with Pure McCartney.
Okay, cool. Very good. Thank you, Mark P., for that question.
Okay, thank you
for being here. Thank you for being here.
I think we have time for like one more question.
Okay.
And then
All right.
I know it's getting late.
All right. We're up to, well, Robert Schmidt is next in line. So let's go with Robert. How you doing? Unmute yourself.
I'm glad
I'm
Robert
good.
made it.
There you go.
It almost looked like Mike wants to really get in here, though.
Well, you know, guys, I only see like a small amount of hands raised.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are
really
up
quick with
keep
the
going,
Okay, I'll be quick.
You
First, thank you for arranging such a special event to celebrate your 50th episode.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody's got such cool Beatles backgrounds, and they're showing such wonderful things. I'm going to show something that
cool.
is actually from Bali.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I've seen that picture on a Hamburg CD. They use that, I think.
Cool.
I think that's the same one.
But anyway, I'm a longtime fan of Joe Mayo, but somewhat new to this Talk More Talk community. So I wasn't really sure what this would be like. I prepared 2 opinion questions and 1 trivia question. Ed actually asked one of my opinion questions, so I'll just ask the other one, I guess. Leave the trivia.
Go for it.
What would you say is your favorite Ringo B-side, other than early 1970s?
The first one that popped in my mind is Down and Out, but I probably have some others that I like even better, but that's the first one that came to mind.
Right. Kit, you want to try?
I like Ooh Wee. I think that's fun. That is a fun song.
So do you mean?
I have to agree with you.
That it's it's just pure fun. It's nothing brainy, but I mean, I heard it talking about the Beatles channel earlier. First time I heard it was on the Beatles channel, and I was like, what is this? And I looked it up, and because I didn't have that single, and I was addicted after that. I just thought, what a fun fun jam. And so yeah, that's my favorite, hands down. I mean, early 1970s great, but that's a fun song.
Hey, Ken?
You mean strictly non-LP, or it could be part of the album too?
Well, just a B-side, so it could be part of an album.
Okay.
Gucci. Sorry.
No. Well, it was really a double-sided hit, but if you consider the No-No song, the A-side, Snookeroo, is a killer song.
Right.
If you think of that as a B-side, I would go with that. If you're talking about non-LP and not early 1970, yeah, Down and Out would be up there. But I love Just a Dream. That was left over from the Ringo the Fourth sessions, and that was the B-side to Wings, the first single, and Drowning in the Sea of Love.
Okay.
Nice.
I do. Joe said Hoochie Coochie. And that's one of my top 3 favorite. Buku's of Blues is one of my top 3 favorite Ringo albums. So I'll go with Hoochie Coochie.
And I do like Blind Man, by the way.
Yeah.
As morose as it is, I like it.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Robert.
Good question.
Yes. Yeah, good question. Okay, moving along. Adam, or did you say I have anything else to say? Ken?
I thought Mike was next. That's okay.
No, we're going with in the order of raised hands, and unfortunately, Mike is last. Actually,
let's just.
But Adam, you're next. So quickly, my friend.
Yeah, let's go fast.
Adam, you there?
You got to unmute.
I'm here.
There you go.
How you doing, Adam?
I just want to say thank you for doing this. And my question is, what do you guys think of the thoughts on these kind of books, the novels, like the fan fiction of this one's The Death and Life of Mal Evans? So just thoughts on fiction novels of the Beatles.
I think the only one I know is that Mark Schipper book. What is it?
Paperback Writer?
Paperback Writer.
Oh, yeah.
That was a lot of fun to read that early on. That was a bizarre thing of what would happen if the Beatles got back together and they were a flop, really, more or less, from what I got out of it. That was fun.
I actually wrote an article about this years ago in Beatle Fan Magazine, and it's, I mean, we could do a whole episode on this, but it's pretty, it's pretty fascinating because fan fiction itself dates, way back, and when the internet came along, of course, it exploded, and Beatles fan fiction in particular, it's been around, I'm sure, since the 60s. And into the 70s. Back then it was just, kind of passed around, I think, through almost, photocopied newsletters and things like that. And then when the internet came along, it just, as I said, absolutely exploded because you could just publish it on the web for low cost and worldwide audience. And there's every kind you can, possibly imagine. Some of it can be very well done. I've read some that, if they do their homework and it's historically accurate, some of it can be pretty well done. Some of it, you know, it's can be a little cringeworthy. Let's put it that way. And I do know some writers who have written it, and they take it very seriously. I mean, some of them do really take it seriously. But you know, sometimes I've read, you know, when I was doing research for this article, you know, when you read about John picking up his iPhone and you know, it's going to be bad.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I have no horse in this race, so I'm gonna bow out. I'm sorry about that, Adam, but I haven't read any of those kind of books. But Ken, have you?
No, I'm in the same category as you. I have absolutely no interest in fan fiction. I'm sorry, Adam.
Awesome.
You know, it's never, you know, I could see myself reading Paperback Writer just for the humor of it all, you know, but there's so much to learn about the Beatles and never ends. And there's always new books coming out that because of the shows that I do, I have to read them. I never get around to that. That's not as important to me.
But as I said, you know, some people really do take it seriously, really do the research, and you know, so. But as I said, some of it, yes, it's you know, it can be cringeworthy, but you know, as I said, I do know some writers, and they really, you know, take it very seriously and work really hard at it. So yeah.
Would you consider the script for Yesterday that kind of thing?
I would say so.
Hey, you know, I didn't think of that.
I actually, I would consider that fan fiction.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, cool.
If it was put in the form of a movie, I'd definitely. Yeah, just like Yesterday, because I love that movie.
Yeah, cool. All right, thank you very much,
Thanks, Adam. Good
Thanks
question.
for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is Saul here? Are you there, Saul? Because I don't see a picture of you. Oh,
Hey,
there you
guys.
are.
There he is.
Hey,
Hey,
all right. What's
How you
up?
guys doing?
Good.
Good.
A little tired.
Congratulations on 50 episodes.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Rooting for more to come.
You'll get them. You'll get them.
We'll try.
Okay. Well, my question is, because you're involving the Beatles into the discussion, I want to get your guys' opinion about the reissues that's happened over the years. Do you guys have any particular favorites that, you know, or some that stand out in your opinion?
Reissues. Okay. Kit, you want to start off with reissues?
Well,
What's your
first of all, you know, when the 2009 reissues came out, I was so excited. I mean, that was the first. The excitement. What?
Oh yeah. I had my wife wait outside of Best Buy to get the box set.
Yeah. I mean, that was because, I mean, truly, after all those years of listening to the ones that sounded like they were remastered in tin cans, it was really great to finally get some decent sounding remaster. So that was really exciting. As far as the more recent ones, I think probably the Sgt. Pepper one was my favorite in terms of the sound. You know, that really knocked me out. I mean, the other ones, I mean, the White Album and the Abbey Road remasters and the box sets, they were great. But I would say the Sgt. Pepper one, just the sound of it, it just clarified so much for me. And there were sounds in it that, you know, certain, you know, guitar riffs and some sound effects and things like that that I had never noticed before, that I could just hear clear as a bell for the first time. And
I agree.
And so that was my favorite. That was almost like a, not to be over dramatic, but kind of a revelation for me.
And what about the solo?
In a new way.
Yeah. What about the solo?
And the solo. I would say I love the Imagine box set. I thought that was beautifully done. You know, absolutely beautifully done. And it really, I mean, I hope that's a sign of more to come from the Lennon estate, because, you know, I just thought it was just first class in design, and also just gave you a great insight into how that album was made. So
the standouts for me are the ones when they had just the strings from Imagine and how
absolutely isolated tracks.
Incredible.
That was, it had water in my eyes when I heard that. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yep.
Yeah,
It was
I
fantastic.
yeah, you know, I was kind of really upset that McCartney doesn't do stuff like that for his box sets, those isolated, you know, strings or vocals or whatnot for his box sets. But yeah, that, you know, the Imagine box set is really, it was a great set. I'll definitely agree with Kid on that, and I'll go for the White Album on the Beatles end of it. I was really happy with that box set, and especially getting the Easter demos, which I know was already been bootlegged out there, but to have it, you know, officially and you know, listen to that, I was really pleased, and you know, just so many great, you know, tracks on there anyways, you know, that are all, you know, out of left field, whether it's you know, Piggies, or you know, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, or you know, Happiness Is a Warm Gun. Just, I mean, a lot of great tracks on it, and that was mine. But Ken, for you?
Like Kit, I love the 2009 remasters. I thought it was a great job. I still use them most of the time for everything. The Beatles box sets, I definitely love the White Album the most. I loved it. There's so much they gave you. They remixed the album. They gave you 3 discs of outtakes plus the demos. What more can you possibly ask for? There's some things there. I mean, I've heard the White Album demos in much more inferior quality. This was so much better, what came out of the box set. Certain things from the outtakes, like I love that instrumental version of Everybody's Got Something to Hide Except for Me and My Monkey, and how it works as an instrumental jam.
Right.
It was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and just certain things that you didn't hear before in the remix. You know, I really feel that, especially with Revolution #1, I feel like I'm really in the room with them, where I could hear everything, like they're right in your face. You know, I think a great job was done with the White Album. I love all 3, Sgt. Pepper, White Album, Abbey Road. I always feel like they could have done more for Abbey Road, though.
Yeah.
And of all the solo stuff, definitely Imagine. And if we can have the same thing for all of John's solo albums, I'd be very, very happy. The same, same approach. You know, use that as the template. That was done on. And I like what you said about the instrumental, the backing tracks. Just hearing that, like on you know, Something, or those songs, or Golden Slumbers, because it makes you realize, you know, the work that George Martin did on those Beatle records. Something is so understated what he did as far as the orchestration on there. And the McCartney ones, probably Flowers in the Dirt, Flaming Pie, Ram. Those are probably the best. I always feel like even on the ones where he gives you a lot, he could still give you more.
Right.
Yeah.
There are certain ones that I'm really disappointed in now, even still. The ones where you have the bonus audio where there's like 7 tracks.
Yeah.
Like Brings the Speed of Sound.
Brings the Speed of Sound.
Come on. I can't believe there can't be an outtake for every single song on that album that you couldn't put there. Venus and Mars was done pretty well, I think. Speed of Sound was a disappointment. I like Tug of War and Pipes of Peace, what was done there. But now, because things are gradually changing, and I think that there's a lot more attention being given to demos in particular, like we saw in Flaming Pie, I think that we'll probably see more of that if they exist in what lies ahead from him.
Gotcha.
But, you know, still, I get very disappointed overall with what Paul's done. As much as I praise the box sets, I always feel like he could have given us more.
Agreed. Joe?
When it comes to Giles Martin stuff, I'm kind of hit and miss. I mean, I think Sgt. Pepper may be the best. Definitely on all 3, you're talking about Pepper and the White Album, and also Abbey Road. I like all the extras, the extra stuff I appreciate. But as far as the actual Giles Martin mixes, some of them are good, some of them not. I still, it's unforgivable to me to really like drown out I've Got Blisters on My Fingers on Helter Skelter. But it was interesting to see like George's song, like Long, 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 get brought up. I think Kit was saying that that's one that she never was. You said that, Kit? You didn't care for that song as too much. And then maybe with this version, I think it was you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a little bit more, interesting.
Yes.
I remember one thing that sticks out on my mind is in Abbey Road, some of the extras. I love that version of I Want You, She's So Heavy with the organ for Billy Preston really going crazy. That's the first thing that I liked. And then John doing Julia, working it out with like George Martin and talking about it, and version of Good Night. is very good on there with all of them on there.
Oh yeah,
That's that's a tearjerker.
So I mean, you know, there's although the extras on those reissues I love the actual mixes themselves. Like I said, for me, hit and miss. And solo wise, everybody has pretty much mentioned the Imagine box. I thought it was such a fantastic job done on those songs. Not too much change, just enough I thought on the mixes. You know, changing it around, and all the extras which were mentioned.
Okay.
Those are some of my favorites.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Good
Thank you,
question.
Sal. Appreciate that.
All right, thanks, guys.
Yep, you
Thank
got it.
you,
All
Sal.
right.
Thanks.
Yep, we're gonna jump to Mike now. I know he's been patiently waiting.
Yes.
And,
then we'll go back to the other two. So, Mike.
Hi,
Did I
Mike.
do this right?
Yes.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Mike.
I love
Yes.
Talk More Talk. Big fan. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank
Great to hear you. My
you.
internet's been breaking up, so I didn't know if you'd be
Whoa.
able to hear me.
No,
Yeah,
you're
we're
fine.
loud and clear.
Congratulations, 50 shows. Big fan. Congratulations to Ken. Great book.
Oh, great.
My question for you, I love your show. I think it's
Thank
excellent.
you.
I always look forward to your news segments. Ken Michaels has been giving me news since 1983.
Thank you, Mike.
And
Yes.
Ken Michaels probably single-handedly turned me on to the solo music of George Harrison.
Ah,
Great.
I'm
Thank you.
probably, I'm guessing about 10 years younger than Ken. So I kind of grew up with the Beatles, but Wings at the same time. Did not know much about George Harrison.
Oh,
So I credit Ken for a lot of that.
okay.
My
Thank you.
question relates to news.
Okay.
The last 5 days, all I'm hearing is McCartney 3, McCartney 3, McCartney 3. So
Yes.
my question is, it seems like there's definitely a solo album coming. It seems.
Right.
What are the chances, if you could give me in your expert Beatle opinions of, is he really going to play McCartney 3 50th anniversary? Give me a percentage that you think he will or he won't. And if he does, in a fantasy land, how do you see him promoting it? I have a million ways in my mind I think I could see him doing it. But do you think it's really going to be McCartney 3 in your opinions? And how do you see him promoting it? And great show. And thanks for doing this.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Mike.
Can I say one thing to start off with that?
Please.
Because I just did a video just talking about the rumor of it. And I think at this point, I was a little skeptical before, but now it's pointing to be kind of like it could be a legitimate rumor. Not official yet, but all the things that I've read, you know, legitimacy factor.
McCartney3.com.
It's kind of looking like it. But I started to wonder after I made the video. I didn't say it in the video. I started thinking, I wonder, knowing Paul like we think we do, if that would be he'd let that be his last album. I'm not saying he's ever going to stop. We also know that Paul's a workaholic, and if he made this album, that doesn't mean it's going to be his last. You know, he probably would do more. But if it should wind up, I wonder if it's in his mind that would he want to go out on that kind of an album? Just going by, say, McCartney 2, which I enjoy, but a lot of critics didn't. Even the first McCartney album, because he just went off on Egypt Station being #1. And I've been wondering a little bit with Paul, kind of have a little ego there, wondering if, that's a good way to go out with a #1 album, you know? So I'm wondering on that part too. Would he do the album, thinking that maybe it wouldn't, on a chance it wouldn't be as well received? Would he want to go out on that?
Okay. Kit?
Yeah. I mean, you know, anything's possible, but certainly, hey, you know, it's kind of the same scenario as McCartney 2, you know, being locked up by himself. Had plenty of time during the pandemic when he was stuck in England. So I mean, the conditions were certainly right for him to do an album like this. As far as publicity, of course, it's a little more difficult considering the circumstances we're in right now. He can't do a carpool karaoke like he did for Egypt Station, which was a stroke of genius. So he's going to have to be a little more creative this time, but you know, he can still do interviews and he can do, I mean, he'll have to do a lot of online stuff. But you know, look what happened with Egypt Station. As long as he does enough, you know, promotion for us, and maybe does some creative videos. I mean, just harness the power of doing stuff online. And he can do some performances online too, of course. I think he could make it work. It may not be quite the success that Egypt Station was, because he can't do a lot in person. But I think he could probably make it work. Now, is this his last album? Who knows? But we'll see. But certainly, I mean, I'm kind of not surprised that this happened, because, as I said, he's stuck at home for all these months, like we all were. So why not? Why not make an album?
There you go.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Ken Michaels.
Thank you, Mike, for all those kind words. It meant a lot to me. You being there for me since my WDHA days means a lot, and I'm glad you dig all the news. This is my guess. I really think it's going to happen. I could be wrong, but I think it has absolutely nothing to do with the 40th anniversary. With the one exception of when Paul had the 25th anniversary of Band on the Run release, none of his archival releases have anything to do with anniversaries. It's only the Beatles group stuff that have been 50th anniversary. But because of the quarantine situation, I think it's the perfect opportunity. And Paul's always creative and he's always writing. And this would be a nice gift for us. He's had a habit in recent years of putting something out around New Year's Eve. I don't know if you ever noticed that. There'll always be a song like Hope for the Future or maybe In the Blink of an Eye came out on New Year's Eve. Just dropped it,
as long as it doesn't sound like the one that came out last New Year's Eve.
Good enough. Yeah.
Oh.
What, get enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Mixed reaction to that. But no, I think that he's going to have to make videos. He could do a lot of live performances, virtual ones online. He probably won't have his band, to do it. So it's probably just going to be him and an acoustic guitar or a keyboard, and that would be fine. And he could do loads of interviews, I believe that Egypt Station hit #1 because of all the promotion that he did and all the drumming up with the carpool karaoke and all that. And it was a miracle that it made it to #1, but it didn't have the staying power that I wish it would have, because radio wouldn't really touch him. So the same thing could happen with a McCartney 3. It would probably go top 10 initially and then drop very quickly. But I can see him, he's always going to promote his work. The easiest thing for him to do is just set up a camera and do something virtual. That doesn't take much. And he's got the money where he can make videos, and they'll probably be very simple videos, He's had a lot of fan videos lately where he doesn't even have to do the work.
Right. Come on to me.
Great Day. The brand new one for Great Day. So, that's probably how he would promote it. But I could see an album of 10, 12 songs from McCartney 3 and coming out in December like it's been rumored. And if this is all true, then we could be hearing something in 3 weeks more definite about it, and maybe a new single. But again, at this point, it's just a rumor.
Just a rumor. I think all the excitement over the last couple weeks about it, I think just the fact that if it is indeed called McCartney 3 alone, I think the excitement over that title would boost it up into the top 10, without any promotion. But I think, promotion, I think, Paul's a genius when it comes to promotion. I don't think he'll be able to do anything like a carpool karaoke like he was able to do with Egypt Station. I think maybe something like that is out of the question right now. And the fact that too, we're celebrating this 50th year as a solo artist. So it really makes sense that something like this comes out at the end of the year. So I think that is important. So I want this to happen just like everybody else, but right now I'm going to give like a 50% right now that it's going to happen, and I'm trying not to get too excited. Let's just say that.
I know.
I'll just try to keep my excitement level down in case there is any disappointment in that. But the hope of a McCartney 3, I think, is just what this community, I think, would be very happy for. Just because of everything we've dealt with this year, so.
I agree. Can I say one more thing?
Please.
I would say it was probably a couple months ago. I saw Ken Michaels mention it in someone's comment, like, "Oh, perfect time for a McCartney 3."
Yeah.
And I saw some of Mr. Mayo's video, which I love your videos too. Two Legs, love it all.
Thank you.
Everything's great. But when I read it 2-3 months ago, I was like, "There's no way he'd do that." But in the last 5 days, I'm going with 100%. I think this is happening.
Exactly.
I think it's happening. I think you're going to see a streaming event where he records all the other instruments, his Flaming Pie performances in '97. And I'm giving this a go. I think you'll see an announcement right after they give me some truth Lennon birthday anniversary.
I hope so. I hope so.
boy.
Yeah, I mean,
Let's hope you're right.
Like Kit said, you give that guy, 3 to 5 months alone,
What's he going to do but make music?
Exactly. Nothing else to do.
Exactly.
And he was away from his wife, too, apparently.
Right.
So,
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta do something.
Right.
Yeah, he
And
can't
Mary, who was on the front cover of the first album, will take the photo.
Of course.
Yeah.
She'll be. Her head now will be popping out of a jacket.
He should have the cover.
Before
should have
and after. Before and after
I
shot.
think we should have the mask on. No, the COVID
That'd be
mask.
fun.
Yeah.
What a great way to end like the worst year. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it really
Right.
is. So,
That would
but
be.
anyway, thank you for your podcast and doing this. Is a lot of fun. And
Thank
you
you,
guys are
Mike.
great.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right.
That
one
would
of
be
our,
the perfect present.
Thank you. All right, last
one of-
two.
All right, one of our big supporters. We really appreciate Tom Brennan being here with us. And Tom, unmute yourself and ask away.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, hi everybody.
Hello, Tom.
Hey, good to see you.
All right. What is your favorite George Harrison song that's a cover version, solo
wow.
and Beatles?
Oh wow. Oh, Joe.
The first one that always springs to mind for me is Baltimore Oriole, solo wise. I never heard the song before the original or anything, but I always loved this, just the sound of it. It's just whimsical and stuff. I really like that. As far as you're saying now, that's the solo. You want to know
Right.
the
And a
cover
Beatle
with-
one as well.
with the Beatles. I'm going real quick here, thinking of them all. Oh, there's a bunch. Well, I might go with Roll Over Beethoven. The way, specifically the way it's recorded on, with the Beatles, or Beatles' second album, if you like. I like the way that they do it. Their version of it. I mean, I like Chuck Berry's too, but very much. But that's a favorite of mine.
All right, Kit.
For solo, Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. Hands
good
down.
choice.
Love that. Love that. Charming. Throwback to, loving his love of music hall, George Formby, all that. Just really charming. I'm going to be a little different with his covers from the Beatles years. I'm going to go back to the Decca auditions because I think he was really the standout of the Decca auditions. I love, Three Cool Cats. I thought he was great in that. Also, Chica Verbi. I'm kind of torn between the two.
One, kids.
I'm torn.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm torn, but yeah, okay, all right. I'll do Chica Verbi because it's just so fun.
Right.
I'll do that one. But yeah, he was the star of the Decca auditions. I think he saved those.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Complete disaster.
I for some reason I've always had a big love affair for Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby. I just like his vocals. I like his guitar playing on that track. Solo wise, wow. Does I Don't Want to Do It count?
Dylan, right?
Dylan, yeah. So I've always enjoyed that song, and it's a song that I just discovered with the Let Me Roll the compilation.
Let It Roll.
Yeah, Let It Roll. Thank you. I remember watching Porky's 2 as a kid when I shouldn't have watched it, but the volume was turned down, so I was
It's not even in the movie, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't. So I didn't know if it was part of the movie or not. Or
You hear, I think
soundtrack.
somebody's something about fixing a car or something with a car,
Right.
and you hear very faint
Okay.
on the radio in the background, very quietly.
Gotcha.
You hear it.
Right.
For a couple of seconds.
Yeah, but I'll pick that because it's the newest cover, to me. But Ken?
Well, I could easily say Between the Devil and the Deep Blue Sea, but just to be different, I think True Love. Fantastic cover of that song. Great slide guitar work from George on there. Could have easily have been, it should have been a big hit record.
Right.
And
Very
great
commercial
video.
sounding, yeah, with Neil Innes in there.
Right.
Neil Innes was a guardian angel in there. And for the Beatles, I'm going to go with the BBC recording. How about Nothing Shaken But the Leaves on the Trees, which is one of my favorites.
Nice.
You know, I never get tired of hearing that one.
Very cool.
He did so much. That's one thing that Brian Epstein insisted, was that George get more lead vocals at that time. Things changed once they had their record contract, but for BBC, Brian felt that they would be even more special if they had 3 lead vocalists in the group. 3 main lead vocalists.
Okay.
But yeah, Nothing Shaken.
Cool. Great picks. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom. Great
Thank
question.
you.
Appreciate it. And last but not least, I think it was the last person that joined us, Marv.
Marvin.
Good old Marv. Hey.
Yes. Unmute yourself and
There
ask.
he is.
Hey guys.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, before I ask a question, I want to show you a pin that I got from Ken Michaels, a Talk More Talk pin.
Hey,
okay.
Episode.
Nice.
Thank you, Ken.
Wear it proudly.
Yes. Got
I
mine
won
too.
Ken's contest, and this was in the mail. Thank you, Ken.
Okay. Quite welcome. Got to wear it every day, though.
I just thought about while I was waiting my turn to ask a question. But a question I have here, trying to wake up here, but a question I have is about remixing the solo Beatles album. Now I understand a lot of John's solo work was remixed back in the 2000s, and there's also a remix of the Tug of War album in the Archive series. If there's a solo Beatles album that you like to see remix, what would that be and why?
Interesting.
It's easy enough for me.
Okay, well, go ahead, Joe.
Well, All Things Must Pass. Because I want to be able to hear stuff like Wah Wah really cleaner, and George didn't really like the quality of that when Phil Spector did it. But but that said, I do like Phil Spector, and in a way, I say All Things Must Pass, the album, wouldn't be All Things Must Pass if it didn't sound the way we're used to it. So it's kind of weird, but I really would be curious if they could ever do it. Hopefully, I was thinking for the 50th anniversary they were going to do something. But I really would like to hear some of that a lot more clearer, George's vocals more discernible, and something like Waiting on You All really might need to be able to hear the words rather than always checking the lyric sheet. What is he saying? So there you go.
I agree with you, Joe.
Thanks.
Ken?
We agree a lot.
I probably would say London Town.
Yeah.
London Town has a very muddy feel to it, very heavy 70s sound to it. That could definitely be cleaned up overall. That's one that stands out for me. Most of the production on solo Beatle albums I've been very happy with.
That's a good one.
Maybe I might pick the first McCartney record. Again, maybe it's the sound quality of that one maybe could be a little bit better. But
the remastering you didn't like of McCartney?
I thought we were just talking about a remix in general, which is a little bit different.
Remix, not remix and remastering are two different things.
I know.
Remix and so
right.
I meant remix.
Yeah. But and then I think All Things Must Pass too. I agree with Joe, but absolutely. So let's see if hopefully that'll be part of the All Things Must Pass. But then you think if it's going to be part of All Things Must Pass, then that's another 2 discs that you got to throw in that set. So. And if they're just going to remaster it, why remix it? I don't know. Kit.
Yeah, I mean, All Things Must Pass would be my number 1 choice, and I guess number 2, I'd like to see Walls and Bridges get an overhaul. I love
Walls
that
and
album.
Bridges was Walls and Bridges was remixed.
Well, they did it.
When was it? Was that
2004, I believe.
Oh, it needs another overhaul since then.
Imagine had another remix.
Yeah, I'd like to hear. Yeah, I'd like to hear another because I love that. I love that album. I think that's an underrated. Hopefully, we'll be doing an episode on that in the future, and that's one of my favorite John Lennon albums. So I always felt that John's albums really need remixing.
Absolutely.
I just so I would love to have that get with new technology. Let's get that, and
Cool.
And Mind Games too. I mean,
Mind Games definitely.
Yeah, that's muddy.
Oh, okay.
But what about that wonderful? I don't want to keep contradicting. What I forget the year. 2002 CD that came out of Mind Games.
Again.
I believe it was 2003.
Yeah,
because that was
No,
really,
2002, I believe. Yeah, around that time.
I think
it needs an update.
Yoko also did rock and roll too, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that
she
was
did the whole catalog. She did the whole catalog.
Yeah. Yep. Update.
Up the rock and roll, and there's also a remix of Live Peace in Toronto and the Plastic Ono Band album as well.
Right. Yep.
Well, I've been happy with the remasters. When the box set came out in 2010,
The signature box.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love the sound on those. I never had a problem with Mind Games and Walls and Bridges myself. Maybe sometime in New York City could be remixed.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I like
I can
John's
see
production. I like John's production. A part of rock and roll could be remixed, although it already was. But I mean, if you want an updated one.
Yes. Update.
All right.
Great answer, guys.
Thanks, Mark. Good question.
But you're welcome.
By the way, one thing.
You're welcome.
Could I just say a quick thank you to Tom Brennan, because for those of you that love the news, he gives me a ton of it, especially for like dark horse artists. He just sent me some information about someone that was on Ringo Records, and I don't keep up to date on that specialized, but he knows this stuff.
He sent me information about a Henry McCullough live CD and DVD.
Yep.
That I hope to check out soon, and he gave it a glowing review. So thank you for that, Tom. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
there
Tom.
you go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's right.
Well, we got them all in. We got all the questions.
Yeah, that was
good.
Kit, you got a lot of work ahead of you.
I know. One that does the editing, uploading, all that stuff.
Yeah, no.
But I think it would work good in it as a two-part upload.
Yes, I'll do that.
If we get off real fast. The longer they are, the harder.
Getting late, Joe?
What's that?
It's getting late, right?
Well, it's not that. It's just the uploading. The longer a video is, right?
Yeah, the longer it takes to upload.
True.
Yeah.
But
great. Well, we want to thank you
Although
all
it is
for
late
being
here.
here. Yeah,
it's late.
You're very welcome.
And hopefully we'll do this again in the future.
For sure.
This was great.
The 100th,
this was fun.
Maybe,
yeah.
And we'll do this all over again. And you guys stuck around. Obviously a couple people left already, but that's okay.
Thanks a lot for waiting.
Sticking
I appreciate
around.
that.
And is everybody in the States here? Anybody?
I work from home, so it doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
It's late.
But
all right.
And really, and thank you all. We can't do the show without you guys. You guys have been with us for so long and tune in all the time, whether live or on the replay. And that's why we wanted you to be part of this 50th episode.
Yep.
Because you're part of the show.
Yeah.
If any of you have ideas for this show,
write to
us.
Yeah, let us know.
We want to know. We're always looking for ideas.
Can we all sing Consciously Conscious to close?
Well, actually, in just a minute, we will ask you to all unmute yourselves to say goodbye, but just in a minute.
Right.
So, Tom?
So, if like Ken said, if you do have any thoughts about a future show that, maybe we forgot about, you can email us at talkmoresolotalk@gmail.com, and I'll check it out. And, hopefully maybe one day it'll become an episode. Wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. Oh, and we can also announce we finally have a website.
Yay.
We finally have a website. We're finally professional. So It's talkmoretalk.com. And it is live, so it's still a work in progress, where we're hoping to upload news, reviews, all that kind of stuff. But it is up. We'll have all the latest episodes and that kind of stuff. So it is up, and so we're debuting that tonight as well.
Great. Thank you, Kits. All right, so everyone want to unmute yourselves? Kit, how do you want to do this?
Okay, everybody unmute yourself.
Oh, so you're going to hear a lot of echo probably.
Yep. All right, so thank you all for joining us tonight. And everybody say good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night tonight.
Good night. Peace out. Everybody, everywhere. Good night.
Yes.
Peace and love.
Peace and love.
Happy International Peace
The love
Day.
you take is equal to the love you make.
Peace and love.
Long live the Queen. The Queen of all
Ah,
media.
there you go. There you go.
I heard she's a pretty nice girl.
Congratulations.
And